Hello, good evening. It's Tuesday. It's just got 8 o'clock. My name's Richard. This is over and over and over again, and this is the Tuesday Clinic. Of course, those of us of an Arsenal persuasion probably need a little bit of therapy tonight after what we witnessed yesterday at Selhurst Park. Not the greatest night in our recent history at all, was it? Not a great game. But we are going to look back on that game, of course. We have actually got a very special guest joining us as well, who's a little bit more perhaps pleased about last night's kind of game than what we are. But anyway, we will be talking about that game, of course. We want to talk about Patrick Vieira, of course, the impact he's had at Palace and how well he sort of managed that game last night. And then as well, we will move on to, obviously, weekend now is a really big game for Arsenal. We have to beat Brighton. There's no excuses anymore. We have to win that game. So we'll look ahead to that. And also as well, we'll just have a quick brief archive section looking back on some of the past meetings with Brighton. There hasn't been that many in history, actually, but there's been a few. I'm sure we'll be able to find a few to talk about. It's all coming up the other side of this. Perhaps not much to celebrate about Arsenal tonight, but anyway, we'll do our best. We have got, of course, our usual guest, Adam. Adam, you're all right. So we've not been on for a couple of weeks, have we? Because of the
it's been a couple of weeks. I'm definitely in need of a bit of therapy tonight, though. Definitely.
Yes,
it's a good place to be tonight.
Yeah, we need a bit of therapy. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a lot off Rich, the Crystal Palace fan. Of course, he was on this show on Saturday to preview, but we thought we'd get him back to look back on the game last night. Good evening, Rich. You must have enjoyed it last night, I'm sure.
Oh, what an amazing spectacle it was. The Palace faithful, as usual, loud and proud. And yeah, I mean, at half time, there was like a stunned silence because I think everyone was just shocked at the manner in which we were performing at. Not saying we haven't played well all season, but it was like, this is Arsenal who are in form and we've completely battered them. You know, so, yeah, especially in that first half.
It was, and I mean, you know, we will come on to it in a minute, but yeah, it was an incredible performance of Crystal Palace. We've got to hold our hands up and say that, but equally, I felt we did contribute to our own downfall as well on the night with some poor mistakes and sort of a bad performance all round. So I think obviously there's only one place that we can start tonight. It will of course be that game last night, as we just touched on. I mean, I put disappointing night at Selhurst. I think that's slightly underplaying it a little bit, Adam. I mean, it was pretty much from start to finish. We just weren't at the races at all, were we? I mean, I was surprised at how poor we were. And we've got to give Palace credit for the way they played, but we were so poor right from the start, wasn't we? It looked like we just played a game before, and this was our second game. We looked leggy. We made far too many basic mistakes that we've not been making. I mean, what do you put that down to, really?
It's a weird one because I seem to remember after the last international break, we started off slow. I can't remember who the game was against, but I seem to remember we started off slow, but we just didn't seem to kick in at all, which was shocking. But I think one of the things that stood out for me is we've found out the advantages of having a young side, throughout this season. But I think last night we saw the disadvantages of having a young side because that first 5 minutes, Palace, pressured us and got in our faces, and they didn't know how to deal with that. If we would have had some slightly more experienced heads on that field, they probably could have weathered that storm a little bit better and then gained control that way. But after that first 5 minutes, especially, we were just chasing shadows most of the time, and it was terrible. But again, as bad as we were, you've got to give credit to Palace, and I'm sure Rich will say more later. But what I liked about Palace is because they had that game plan, and they done it against us at the Emirates earlier in the season, where we were lucky to get a draw. Yeah. They knew how to neutralise our key players, like Tyreek. Is it Tyreek Mitchell, your left back? Like he didn't give Saka an inch last night. Likewise, Odegaard usually had one or two players around him every single time the ball was going towards him. So they marked those two players out of the game, and they've been our key creativity over the past probably 2-3 months. They've been our two best players, two consistent players. So when you take our two most consistent players and two forms of creativity out of it, what else have we got then? And that's what I thought Palace, from a game plan, got it bang right. So as bad as we were, we couldn't compose ourselves. You've got to give Palace credit for actually saying, well, those are the two danger men. Let's concentrate on them and then see how they react. And I did think we were a little bit better in the second half. It was better when Martinelli come on. I thought he'd give us a little bit more drive. I think Smith Rowe just couldn't get into the game, like Saka and Odegaard. And when you've got those key players up front who just can't get the ball, you're always going to struggle. I mean, we looked awful at the back. I mean, we have looked better at the back this year, but everyone, even from the first couple of minutes, like Gabriel looked shaky, Ben White looked shaky, and he's usually been quite composed. I'm not even going to talk about Tavares. It will upset me too much because, that's now 2 games he started this year that he's not even seen the second half. That says all you need to know about that. But it's worrying now. So the news about Tierney coming out today, it is kind of now concerning the fact that we are going to now test the abilities of our squad. You saw the bench we had last night. We had 3 players who haven't actually played any first-team football in the league yet. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I'm worried. But fair play to Palace. We were bad last night. We were bad, but that shouldn't take anything away from Palace actually being bang up for it. And I think, we'll talk about Vieira a bit more later, but I'm quite impressed with the job he's done there and also the players he's got in and the mixture he's got between sort of some experienced heads and some youngsters as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've heard a lot of, people defending Mikel Arteta has been, well, we needed a rebuild job. It takes time. Well, yeah, but Crystal Palace lost half their squad last summer when Patrick Vieira took over. That's been a rebuild job, and he's done it in 6-7 months, and already seems to have done that process a lot quicker. I mean, one thing I noticed, Rich, last night, and I know we spoke about it a little bit on Saturday, but for me, already, Crystal Palace play in the personality of Patrick Vieira, the way he played as a player, on the front foot, getting in people's faces, and that's how Crystal Palace are playing already. Arteta's took 2 years, and he still hasn't really got much of an identity in how he wants the team to play. And that was glaringly obvious last night. It was a little bit obvious in the first game, but even more so last night. I could see the improvements. I mean, that's the first 90-minute Crystal Palace I've seen since you played us at the Emirates, and you could see how much Crystal Palace have improved. The work they've done defensively, the work they've done off the ball was so much better in that short period of time. And I can't praise that job he's doing highly enough. And last night, Adam said Palace got their tactics right. No, Patrick Vieira got it right. Patrick Vieira got his tactics right, set his team up right, got the right game plan. He nullified the danger players, and he did it perfectly. And, you must have been sitting there last night in dreamland, really, watching the way that Crystal Palace tore us apart for 45 minutes. That was embarrassing from our perspective. But, I mean, you just ripped us to pieces.
First thing first, I just want to say to yourself and to Adam, thank you for acknowledging that we played well, because all I've been hearing from other Arsenal fans is how bad they were. We made you look bad. And that goes right into what you're saying about Vieira and his philosophy. We've drawn about 12 to 13 games this season, and I would easily say maybe 10 of them we should have won. Last minute goals, lapses of concentration here or there. We've really tightened up at the back because we've always known what we've got going forward, whether it's Eze or Zaha, and now the inclusion of Elise's, Mateta, Edouard, Benteke if he plays, Gallagher especially. But defensively, that's our 4th clean sheet in a row.
Yeah.
And the old saying, obviously, attacks wins you games, but defenses win you championships. And we are actually in a not championship winning form, but I think we're in the last 6 games, I think we're 6th in the form table, which shows how far we've come. Vieira's philosophy, from the first pre-season game where we had, I think, Tompkins and Martin Kelly at the back, he wanted them playing at the back. Tompkins and Martin Kelly. So he didn't care who the players were. He wanted to drill in, we're going to be playing from the back. And then obviously we've then got the players on the summer to kind of fit his needs and stuff. But the biggest thing I'm pleased about, and I think I spoke to you about this on Saturday, Rich, is that against Arsenal, I said the midfield battle will be key with the press. It wasn't just the midfield pressing yesterday. No. My goodness, to see all players involved actively pressing, like from the front with Mateta, who I was berating at the beginning of the season. He's won me over completely. Like, I've sent my apologies already.
Last night, he reminded me a lot of Adebayor in his prime. The way he was Paddy
Yeah.
Boyle when he first come to Arsenal, the way he kind of played, like up the front, leading the line, causing problems. He really reminded me of Paddy Boyle.
Yeah, he's so unorthodox, but boy, he's effective. He's very, very effective. And his hold-up plays got better, his link-up plays got better, and he's scoring goals, which is the most important thing. But then even with the back line, whenever it did get to your forward players, like your Sakas, your Lacazettes, your Odegaards, your Smith-Rowes, I think Smith-Rowe had one opportunity to run that line.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
The whole game. One. Saka, anytime he was running at Mitchell, he was running inside. Like, for a man, we were brilliant. Brilliant all over the pitch.
No, you were. I mean, it was. I wouldn't say it was a total shock to me because I know Crystal Palace are a decent team now, but I was shocked at how easily it was, how easily you got through us, how easily you carved us open, and how easily you nullified all of our threats on the pitch. And that was quite worrying from our point of view. And I was a little bit surprised by it. I mean, Loki's got a point where he says Palace bullied us and passed us off the pitch. Yeah, exactly. They did. Bullied us is a very good way to put it. Neil's in the chat there. He says we couldn't hold on to the ball or string two passes together when we did get it. It seemed there was 22 Palace players to our 11. No, it did. But that was the work they were doing off the ball as well, closing us down. We just couldn't get anything going at all. Neil also says they're very disappointed. Hope it's just a blip. We'll have to see. Palace thoroughly deserved it, and the atmosphere seemed unreal. Credit where credit's due. No, exactly. And I would never try to look for excuses as to why we lost. We lost because Palace were better than us, and that's the end of the day. That's it, really. Herman in the chat, how you doing, mate? He says most clubs today come out strong, and one should be prepared for it. Yeah, you should. We should have been prepared for what Crystal Palace were going to offer, and we wasn't. We didn't seem as though we were. I mean, I know, Adam, you didn't really want to talk about Nuno Tavares too much, and I don't really want to talk about him too much either, but I don't blame him necessarily. He played in that Nottingham Forest game in a cup, as you said, got taken off after 35 minutes because he was having a torrid time. He's not even been on the pitch since then.
No.
And then suddenly he's thrown straight into a difficult Premier League game away from home, and everyone suddenly expects he's going to be straight up to speed. Of course he wasn't. His confidence would have been knocked from that anyway. And unless he had a really, really good start to the game, it was always going to be tough for him. And although he was awful in that first half, I didn't want him to get taken off for his own confidence point of view. I wanted him to stay on and try to grow into the game and see if he could improve. And now he's took him off. That's it for me.
Yeah, I agree in that respect. When he come off at half time, I didn't agree with that because especially when you've not got a natural left back on the bench to take his place, they put a central midfielder left back. That just says we don't trust you. Do you know what I mean? What is that going to do to his confidence? So yeah, he had a shocker. He did have a shocker, but like you said, he hasn't had the minutes to get used to the pace of the Premier League. He's played reserve games, but it's nowhere near the pace of what it is to play in the Premier League. And the worst thing you could do for that, confidence-wise, is not put him out in the second half. You at least get him a chance. Put him out there, give him a chance. If it's not working, then you make the changes. But to take him off at half time and then move a midfielder who, Jack has been good for us lately, to left back, fair enough, Jack had probably done a better job at left back than Tavares did, but that's regardless. You sacrifice someone. And after that, the team was disjointed after that. The formation was all over the place. Like, you had Martinelli and Smith-Rowe both playing out left at one point, and it's like, what's going on? Like, none of them were really kind of sure what was going on. So it weren't nice. It weren't good. And I know Arteta can be quite ruthless with stuff like that, and he doesn't, wait around, which some people might applaud him for. But you've also got to think the long term for the player. Where's that leaving now in his head? Where's that completely leaving now? It's like, is he going to get a run in the team now at Tierney? Are you going to give the faith to him? I mean, like, if you've got to, you've got to say, right, you're into the end of the season, no matter what, faith, let you improve. Or who else? No, I don't know who else we've got who can go there. We've got options, but yeah, he was bad. But like you just said, he hasn't really figured since that Forest match. No. So it's a little bit unfair to expect him to be up to scratch immediately. And I think it was the fact that because Palace started so strong, he just didn't get time to settle at all.
No, he didn't. And unfortunately, he wasn't given the opportunity to try to improve in the second half, was he? Like, he wasn't at Nottingham Forest. He was dragged off even earlier in that game. And I didn't like to see that. And I don't think that's great management from Arteta, actually. I think Arteta needed to put his arm around him at half-time and say, look, you're having a tough time, go out there and prove everybody wrong and have a stronger second half. And he may well have done. We don't know. The game was different in the second half because Palace were 2-0.
He's only young.
Exactly. He's only young. He's in a new country as well. He's just, he's not played that many games. and he hasn't played at all for months, and suddenly he's thrown into the cauldron of Selhurst Park last night, which was going to be tough anyway. And I just felt that was really poor management from Arteta, and it's not the first time he's done stuff like that, and that's a little bit of a concern for me, because I don't know what anyone expected from Tavares when he's not played. Was he going to go straight in and have a great game? Probably not. And I say to take him off like that was terrible, really. And I mean, the second half of the game, though, I mean, Rich, it was a different game in the second half. You were 2-0 up. You didn't need to chase the game. And I thought what you did well was you managed the game really, really well. We only had that one chance from Smith Rowe, really. I mean, Erdegaard had one that he put wide, but that was the big chance. And that was all we had. And we were chasing the game. And I thought you managed that so well in the second half. You didn't need possession. You sat back. You let us get the ball. But you got everybody behind the ball organised, and then on the counter attack, you looked dangerous, and of course got the third goal. That was what impressed me actually in that second half, because it was a different game. We didn't play any better necessarily, but the tactics changed, didn't they?
Yeah, spot on. And it's a feature that we've definitely improved on. Like against Man City, like we were able to hold like two banks and stuff, and we wasn't really troubled then. I think the Smith Rowe one was huge. Particularly the first one, I think he shot with his right foot. It was just straight at Gaeta. Yeah. That goes in. Even though you're not playing well, the whole atmosphere could change, you know.
Yeah.
His second one was a little bit. I mean, you should do better, but it was a good block from Gay on the line.
Yeah.
To be fair, so it can't be too hard on that one. But other than that, like you said, there was not much created. I have a theory regarding the Thomas Partey incident, by the way. Obviously, regarding his performance and obviously his injury, I believe he's just converted to Islam as well.
Yeah,
so this may actually have been his first Ramadan.
Yeah, it will be.
So that may have played a factor in his performance, because obviously fasting. For us, we had Jordan Ayew and Cheku, who've been practicing for years. You know, so that may have played a factor in his performance. So,
that's a fair point. I hadn't thought that. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. You're right, because it was only very recently that he converted, wasn't it? There was a big news about it. So, yeah, it probably will be the first time he's done this. So, yeah, that possibly did have an impact, because he was very, very poor, wasn't he, last night? I mean, I've never seen him that poor. I mean, I know he's had some bad games earlier in his Arsenal career, but that last night was dreadful.
Yeah.
He was
especially after how he has been playing the last 3 months. Since he's come back from AFCON, he's been brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's completely different last night.
It was, and maybe that's a good point actually. Maybe that had an impact on his performance, and I said obviously the injury as well that he picked up later on, and that to go off. I mean, it was his mistake, wasn't it, for the third goal? But even in the second half, when although we had a lot more possession, I still felt inside that Palace were more likely to score the next goal on the counter attack. It just looked that way, didn't it? The way the game was going, we just wasn't offering enough threat. We wasn't getting in behind the defence at all. We wasn't really testing the keeper. There was that one chance, and I think if Smith Rowe scores, then makes it 2-1. There was still half an hour to go. Who knows? It may have changed the game, but up till that point, I wasn't confident that we could have turned it around, to be honest. And of course, the third goal killed it. I mean, wasn't there 2 penalty incidents? Maybe Saka. There was one in the first half on Saka, which wasn't given, and then of course the one on Zaha, which I think was pretty clear. It was the right decision. Yeah. I mean, what did you make of the Saka one in the first half? Because I've seen them given equally. Yeah. It would have been quite soft.
Again, I completely agree. We've seen those given this season. But let's be honest, it would have been a soft penalty. It would have been a soft penalty. Like, it wasn't clear cut, was it? It wasn't clear cut. So it would have been nice to get it and get a bit of luck outside, because we've had a bit of bad luck with penalties this year going against us. But in all honesty, it was soft. So I can't have any complaints about that, really.
I was at the ground. And I was like, uh-oh. Because where I was sitting, I was like, as you said, these kind of get given and such. Yeah. I think it was soft as well. It looked clumsy. If anything, it looks clumsy. But I've looked at it back from a camera angle from behind Saka, and he actually sticks his leg out.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
So I guess if it did go to VAR, maybe that would have been overturned if it was given initially.
Yeah, but I felt the Palace penalty was clear. There's no argument. Again, like, no Arsenal players really appealed it, which always says it all. When there's no appeal from the players, it kind of tells you everything you need to know, really. So, it was, again, I'm one of these, I can't get too annoyed about the penalty decision, because it wasn't really a penalty. Would have been nice to have got. I would have took it, obviously. If they would have gave us a penalty, I would have took it. But well, not me personally. I probably would have missed. But you know what I mean. But no, you know, I can't have any complaints. People were saying the Palace penalty was soft, but that's the rules of the game. You know what I mean? There's a penalty. It's like when it happened, it was always going to go.
It was a silly challenge, wasn't it, from Erdogan? He's done it once before, didn't he? Did it? Was it Man United, wasn't it? When
he just jumped in, didn't
he? He did a similar challenge on Ronaldo, didn't he? And it was the same result, and he did it again. There was no need to do that. You know, Zaha ran 40 yards with a ball, didn't he? Before that, someone should have fouled him outside the box or dealt with it better. And then, you know,
it's that professionalism, and it's like, you know, the older heads wouldn't have done that. Younger heads panicked a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. He's dived in when he didn't need to, because you knew what Zaha was going to do in that position. He was always going to cut back inside to get a shot away. That's all he was going to do. And Erdogan just needed to stop, didn't he? And just stop him from doing that and be ready to take the ball off him. And he didn't. And obviously terrible defending, and it was a penalty. So, but I mean, it ultimately didn't make a lot of difference other than to the goal difference side of things, I guess, really, because I didn't think we were going to come back before the penalty, to be honest. It was one of them days for us. I mean, what I do want to look at, actually, because I know Rich has got to shoot off at some point. I did want to talk about this dude. Richie shaking his head there. I did put our next manager potentially. I mean, I still think he's rehearsing for the Arsenal job. I think he's been rehearsing for the Arsenal job since he went to America. And a lot of his interviews last night was making me smile a little bit because, you know, he was asked about Arsenal a few times and stuff like that. I mean, the job he's done in such a short space of time, I know it's early days still, and let's not get too excited. My worry, though, Adam, is that particularly if Crystal Palace reach the FA Cup final, that other big clubs are going to be looking at Patrick Vieira. And if we don't act quickly enough, we may end up being overtaken by somebody else. I mean, Pep's not going to be at Man City much longer. Obviously, Vieira's got links to Man City. He worked there before. He played for them. It's a worry for me that if we don't think about this seriously in the next short period of time, we could end up losing him to someone else. And I think he wants the Arsenal job, and I think he'd be perfect for the Arsenal job. I mean, I know at the moment we're doing okay. We're fifth in the league. We're challenging for the top four. Arteta's doing okay. But long term for me, I think Vieira is perfect for Arsenal. But do you think that's likely to happen, or do you think we're just going to sit on our hands and let Man City take him in a couple of years?
I don't think Arteta's going anywhere, you know, but and everything screams that way. You know, they've invested in the team that he wants. They've let him get rid of the players he wants to go, with a clear strategy about the kind of players he wants to sign now. You know, even if we don't get top four this season, he's not going nowhere, you know. And for most of the season, we've all been quite happy with him. You know, there's still a lot of stuff he needs to improve on. We know that. But for the vast majority, you know, he's been a lot better this year, let's be fair. You know, there's a couple of games, like we said, where we've been awful when we question his tactics. But the club have kind of, I think, you know, planted their flag. He's our man. We're backing him in the transfer market. We're backing the kind of players he wants. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Would I like Vieira? Of course I'd love Vieira to be our manager. You know, I love that player. He's fantastic. And I'm still not saying no in the future. I think, you know, even if you get maybe 3 or 4 more years out of Arteta, who knows where Vieira could be in 3 or 4 more years. He could be staying at Palace. He could go on. But then he could also go on to someone like City and completely fail and then fall off the wayside again, like happened with certain managers before when they get a big job and it's just not right for them. But, you know, I think Vieira's surprised a lot of people. You know, I was chatting to a friend of mine who's an Everton fan, and he had a bet on Vieira to be the first manager to be sacked this year. You know, and like now he's like, you know, fair enough, he's doing really, really well. And I think that you mentioned earlier, Rich, about all the draws you've got, but I think that actually says a lot about Vieira, the fact that what he's done first and foremost is make you hard to beat, which I think is something managers don't often do when they go to a new club. They go in, they try and sign all these players who are going to score the goals and be creative, but they don't concentrate on the real basics of football. Is if we make ourselves hard to beat, that gives us a basis to work from, and then we can push forward. And that's what Arteta didn't really do, going back to when he first joined us. You know, he bought a lot of players on stopgap and spent money on kind of like, you know, bigger players further up the field, and etc. But now, like last transfer window, he invested heavily in the defence, new goalkeeper, new right back, new centre back. But I think he probably should have done that before. But I think, you know, fair play. Vieira's come in. He inherited quite an aging side from Hodgson, didn't he? and saw what he needed to improve, and he's brought some really good players, some really good youngsters. I mean, like, I think if he comes to Arsenal, he could easily bring Elise with him. I'd like that. I think he's a very good player whenever I see him play. And when I saw him play for Reading last season as well, I thought he was really good. So, yeah, we'll take him. But
leave our guys alone.
Would I like to see Vieira at Arsenal one day? Of course I would. Do I think it's going to happen imminently? No.
No, I mean, he's not even had a season at Palace yet in the Premier League as a manager, and he's going well at the minute. But I can see other clubs looking at him already because of the job he's doing. Last night in particular,
and why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he's got such big Arsenal links, and I know, Rich, you spoke about this the other night, and I know, you want him to stay for at least a couple of years at Palace and continue the work he's doing. But I just feel as though he's got, no disrespect to Palace, but bigger things in line for his career later on. Do you know what I mean? Unless for some reason we hope he's getting Europe next season, who knows? He can compete at the top level. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of what he's doing. I mean, for you as a Palace fan, I mean, last night in particular, you must have just been, the way that he approached that game was perfect. His game plan was perfect. And, we mentioned about Arteta one time, we had 5 players over on the left-hand side. It's like he didn't have a clue what he was doing tactically, and Vieira was almost laughing at him, of how much more organised he was. I mean, from your perspective, that must just be great to see. He's not lost to Pep. He's got 4 points off Pep. Arteta's not got any points off Pep in about 5-6 league games he's played against him. Vieira's played 2 and got 4 points. Do you know what I mean? Already. And he's got 4 points off us already. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, what's he doing that's so great? What's the secret?
I'd like to know myself. I guess he just does his homework. And he really studies the game. I think the fact that obviously he went into like the MLS and stuff, it showed that he doesn't have like too much pride to want to learn this trade. And then also he went into punditry, which gives another side of the game as well. So whatever he's doing, let it continue. But Rich, I've got to shoot up my stream.
I know you got to shoot off, mate. Thanks a lot for coming on. And,
no problem. Nice to meet you, Adam.
You too, man. Take
care.
Enjoy the rest of the season. Good luck for the FA Cup as well. Did you get a ticket, by the way?
Got a ticket.
You got? Oh, good man. Excellent. Good stuff.
All right. Take care.
No worries, mate. Cheers. Thanks for coming on. So that's Rich there, Eagle-Eyed Football. Check that out as well. Great channel. And he obviously enjoyed last night a lot more than what we did. But for me, I thought, Adam, last night, the whole tactical side of that game was 100% Vieira success, wasn't it? And 100% failure from Arteta. And what worries me is that it isn't the first time this season. It's I think I mentioned off air to that we've played 35, 36 games this season, all competitions, and 10 of them have been bad performances, like really, really poor performances. And unfortunately, when we play badly, we lose. Yeah, we can't win games when we don't play well, can we? We just haven't managed to do it all season.
I think the game, that's where I mentioned the game before we come on, the fact that with the kind of experience levels we've got in our team, that this is the kind of thing where it does show. We've seen when people like Man City, Liverpool don't play well, they still get results. They still get wins. Do you know what I mean? Let alone they don't lose. They still get wins when they're not playing well. And we used to be like that. When Arsenal were at the top of their game, we used to play badly and somehow get away with a win, 1-0 down to 10 men. You just have that ability, and at the moment we just don't have that yet, and I hope we get that. We're kind of going in the right direction. We're getting a bit more of the ruthlessness back, but kind of seems everything has to be blown in the right direction for it to happen at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like when we come up against a team who causes problems. I mean, it reminds me a little bit when we played Burnley at home. It was that 0-0 game. When we come up against the team who kind of had their tactics, and we ain't got really a chance of getting a foot in. I mean, on paper, we should be beating Burnley, we should be beating Palace, but football's not played on paper, is it? It's one of these crazy things. But something needs to be done. That's definitely an aspect that I think we need to be worked on, and hopefully that will come with experience. Hopefully that the more the players experience games like this, they'll learn from it. And that's the thing, you've got to hope they do learn from those kind of things. They don't just chalk it up. They do talk about it. They do discuss what they need to do better.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does come with experience. Obviously, it does. I mean, you mentioned that with the players as well. Yes, we've got a very young team, and that is the consequence of that sometimes, isn't it? That we're not able to know how to deal with those situations as well because they're a young team. But it does. What does really, really concern me is when things that aren't going particularly well in a game from the beginning, we don't change it. We're not able to change it. Arteta can't change the way he sets the team up. And I came up with this theory earlier today, right? And I wanted to put it out on the show really because I think it kind of sums up for me what's happening. You know, when you start playing football as a kid and you're in like under sixes and you're under sevens or under eights, you've got the guy that runs your team is on the sideline and he's constantly telling you what to do. You go here, you go there, give the ball there, come here, go there, because they're young players. They don't know what they're doing and they're trying to learn how to play football. That guy is a coach. When you get into adult football, you go, you know, you've got the guy running the team and he'll stand on a touchline. He'll give you odd instructions here and there. We're going to change that there. We're going to go free at the back, whatever it is. He's a manager, right? And that's the difference. Arteta is a coach. Clearly, he's a coach. You can see last night, Patrick Vieira and many others, they are managers. They act like a manager. And Arteta isn't. He's a coach. And he may well be a very, very good coach. And he may well be one of the best coaches in European football. That's great. But he's not a manager. And I don't think he ever will be a manager because he is a coach. And what Gary Neville said, was it last week, about the best Arsenal can hope for under Arteta is to be top four. That's it. We're never going to progress beyond that. Gary Neville, as much stick as he got, is 100% right, in my opinion, on that. I don't think us as a club will Arteta may well be able to get us into the top four this season or next season. He may well be able to do that. But can he progress us to the next level that we need to go to after that? I've not seen anything to convince me that he can.
I think that's a really good way of putting it that I hadn't really thought of before. I've always classed him as a good coach because, you know, people say he is. But, yeah, I've never really thought he is a coach rather than a manager. I think you're right. I mean, I'm someone who coaches kids football. I coach two teams. I coach an under-6 teams and an under-13s teams. And you are standing on the sideline telling them this way, stop, run, like that. Yeah. And it is what Arteta does on the sidelines. He is right. You shouldn't have to be doing that during a match. But a good example is Wenger. Wenger had Pat Rice. Pat Rice was the coach. Pat Rice was always the one on the sidelines. Whereas Wenger was the one who sat down at the dugout, very occasionally got up and
argue with the referee usually.
He was arguing the ref or the fourth official. But you know what I mean? He did sit down. He let his coaches go to the tight and get the instructions out. We were saying you'd see him there, like Pat Rice having a word, go out there. Whereas it's the other way around at Arsenal. Arteta's the one who's out of the dugout, and all these coaching staff are actually the ones laying down, sitting down. So it's a real, I hadn't really thought of it like that, but it's so true. And he is obviously come on board as head coach, but now he is officially manager. But he is a coach, and by all accounts, he's a very, very good coach. I mean, there's a lot of even players from City talk very, very highly. Raheem Sterling talks very, very highly of him. Yeah, saying that he was part of the reason why he done so well at City. But maybe you're right. Maybe that's not what we need right now. Maybe we do need someone who can take a step back. And I think you need to have faith in your players. If you're coaching them right and drilling them right on the training pitch, you need to let them go out there and make mistakes. Because I think that was one of the things I remember was when it was lockdown and when you could hear all the noise from the bench and that. I remember when we had Ceballos in the team, my God, the amount of times he was saying, Danny. It's like, you're thinking, I used to feel sorry for Ceballos, thinking, he's a grown man, he's a professional footballer on God knows how much money, and he's getting told every single step of the way where to be, what to do. If he don't know that by now, he don't need telling. He needs to get another career. That's what, and I haven't really thought about that since then, but that's what he does. So maybe there is something in that. Maybe there is. I still don't think he's going nowhere, but maybe that's a very good point, and I hadn't really considered that before. So I agree.
It's just I was just sort of thinking about it really because I mean Neil has put in the chat when he first joined he was a coach initially. We did really well. Well, we didn't really do that well, did we, at the beginning? To be fair, things went downhill when he took the mantle of manager. However, last night aside, we've done well recently. Yes and no. I suppose the results have been better. Neil says he really micromanages during game time. You don't. You have to trust and give players some freedom to express. No, exactly. That's always been my criticism of him, and that's why I think maybe was he a youth coach at Man City initially? I think he may well have been a youth team coach. I think he might have been.
Yeah, I think he got promoted to like first team coach very quickly. Though. I think he went in as a youth, didn't he? Went in as youth coach. But
And you can maybe see why he's actually good with young players, because he's kind of got that under sixes kind of coach mentality, I think, still. And maybe young players kind of like that. And I think maybe that's why he struggled maybe with some more experienced players, because they're not gonna deal with that, are they? You know, players like Ozil and Aubameyang, they don't need to be micromanaged like that. They don't need to be
why it
constant.
didn't work for them. That might be why he's trying to buy a certain type of player. Who knows?
Exactly. That's what I believe as well. And I think that all those things together are actually going to hold us back long term, because you can't be picky and choosy about you only want to buy certain types of player. You've got to be flexible enough to say, you know what, let's we may need to adapt slightly to get this player to perform well in our team. And sometimes you've got to do that to become a better team. And I'm not sure if Arteta can do that. Neil said there, sorry, Rich, I mean, he did well by winning the FA Cup and beating the big team. No, he did, yeah, to be fair. We did get some good results against some of the bigger teams, didn't we, earlier on in Arteta's. It wasn't too great, was it, apart from the FA Cup? But no, I suppose so. But yeah, I'm not sure. And I kind of agree with Gary Neville. I'm not sure if he is going to be able to progress us much beyond where we are at this moment in time. If we make the top four, or even if we fall just short, I don't think we can expect much more than that over the next 2 or 3 years if we keep Arteta. Personally, I've not seen anything to make me think, you know what, he's got something about him as a manager. There was a few comments last night, and I'll be interested to know what you think about this, actually, because I've had a few people say that, oh, well, Crystal Palace away is a tough game. Well, I'm sorry, but we've only lost there twice before in history. It's not a tough game for us. It's a game we generally do well in. So it's a difficult place to go. I agree, atmosphere on a Monday night, but you can't say it's a tough place. Anfield's a tough place to go. We never win there. The Etihad's a tough place to go. We never win there. Places like Southampton have been a tough place for us to go. Stoke used to be a tough. Crystal Palace isn't, because we never lose there usually. Twice in 40 years. We've only ever lost there twice. So I don't know. What did you make comments like that saying, oh well, it's all right. It's Palace away, tough game, tough place to go. Well, it isn't for us traditionally.
I think generally speaking, I always approach every game that it's going to be tough, because they should be. Everything in the Premier League should be a tough game, no matter who you're playing, where you're playing. But you're right. I mean, I've never been worried going to Selhurst Park. I've been to Selhurst Park away a couple of times. I didn't go last night. And it's not a ground that you go to trembling, because, like you said, historically, we have done quite well there. So, no, I'm not having that it's a tough place to go, because we have got, issue there. But the same period, like, I knew it was going to be tough based on the game we played against the Emirates, where we were lucky to get a draw. I knew, and the fact that they have actually been playing well, and I don't think their points tally kind of shows how good they have been this season, because I've seen them a few times on the telly and that, where they've been dominating, and then, like Rich said earlier, they've conceded a few late goals, lack of concentration, etc. But I'm not having that tough place to go. You look at our fixture list, the last 10. That wasn't one of the ones that you'd be worried about too much. That wasn't one of, like, the ones you look at would be, Man United at home, just because it's Man United. Chelsea, Spurs. You wouldn't think at all Palace, that's going to be a tough one either. You wouldn't have picked it out. But it's just one of those things, isn't it? They were bang up for it. They were bang up for it, and fair play to them. Fair play to them. I mean, I want that to be a real wake-up call, though. I want that to be because we got a proper turning over. Let's be honest, we got a proper turning over, and I hope that we now get a real reaction. Remember, like, when we lost those first 3 games of the season and then we went and beat Norwich, that wasn't really a reaction. That was a scrappy, but I really want a reaction now, like a real good kind of performance against Brighton, who are, Brighton are on their knees at the moment. They can't score for it. We'll talk about it later, but they can't buy a goal, missing penalties, whatever. So, like, if there's a good time to play Brighton, it's now. But let's see. But no, I'm not having that. I mean, it wasn't one of the top 5 out of the last 10 games I was worried about.
Well, no, I mean, I had it earmarked as a potentially, one of the games that we could potentially drop points in. I wasn't expecting us to lose in the manner that we did. But I certainly don't look on Selhurst Park as a difficult place to go, because historically it's not been for us. And the atmosphere is great. Of course it is. We know that. It's always been a good atmosphere there. But yeah, I thought, I don't know, it seems to be people looking to make excuses for Arteta whenever we lose, and to me it's like, I can't see what benefit that does. Let's be realistic about it. Let's be realistic about the fact that when games aren't going well, Arteta can't change it. He's very rigid tactically. His man management of certain players has been dreadful. He's far too, as Neil put in the chat as well, he's micromanages far too much. And I think all these things combined are the reason why we're not going to progress as much as we've got the potential to with some of the great young players that we've got. And I agree, the experience is a massive issue, and you can see that quite clearly, can't you? You know, we're missing experience, and now of course we're missing depth in the squad as well, because as you mentioned earlier last night, we had those 3 kids on the bench, never played first team football before, just to make up the numbers because we're that short. And I mean, and that's a ridiculous position to be in when we've got a great opportunity to finish top 4 this season. We knew that in January.
That's what really worries me now.
Yeah, we saw the position that we were in January. We've got ourselves onto the edge of that race for the top 4. We could see Man United were inconsistent. We could see Tottenham were struggling. We could see all this opening was there, and the club had to show more ambition in January. Yeah. Or did Arteta need to be a little bit more flexible on the players he was prepared for us to buy, just to strengthen the depth in the squad? Gona Jodes in the chat says, you think not signing a striker in January will be the downfall for a Champions League push? He says, we definitely should have signed a striker, in my opinion. That will be our failure. I mean, a striker is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because Arteta wants a striker to be a Lacazette, a Firmino type of striker, I think, rather than a get on the end of things, score your 25 goals a season type striker. And yes, we could do with another striker, there's no doubt. And Ketch having to come on the bench every week at the minute when he's clearly not good enough to get goals in the Premier League, shows that we do need to buy a striker. But my worry is, even in the summer, we're not going to buy the sort of striker that us as fans want to see, an Ian Wright type of striker, somebody like that. Well, I don't think we're going to buy a striker like that. If we do, he's going to be a hard-working striker that's going to drop deep, link the play in the midfield, further the field, rather than inside the penalty area a lot more and stuff like that. Do you think that's going to be what will happen? Because I can see that as style of play.
Yeah, I think we might get a couple of strikers in the summer. Maybe like one who's ready to go, and then one who maybe needs to, progress in the reserves, subs, that kind of thing. But you can tell by the players who are being linked with the kind of striker. He's being linked with players who can play, like you just said, off, like you said, kind of false 9, or can play out wide. And he wants those players who can play in multiple positions because he's got those already. So, that he can manoeuvre. And I think that's good in theory, the fact that you can change things during a game, but he still doesn't do it now. Do you know what I mean? So, it's all very well out getting buying the players, but if you're not doing it now, do you know what I mean? Because for me, I think Lacazette's played okay lately, but he's not that kind of 20 goals a season striker anymore. He is that kind of person who was, when Aubameyang and he were playing.
Yeah, no, but you say that, Adam, right? And I believe that if Lacazette was playing actually as a proper striker, he could score 20 goals a season. He's got 19 a couple of times for us when he was playing in that role. And I think he could score the goals, but because he's asked to do a different job now, basically Arteta doesn't care if he scores or not.
No, I agree. I think
that's affected it.
Do you think Martinelli's going to go in the centre? Do you think he will get in the centre? I don't either. Otherwise, he would have been in there now. Many people are saying, Martinelli's going to be in the centre next year. Well, if he's going to be in there next year, why are we not playing him in there now? Exactly. You know what I mean? Why? Do you know what I mean? Like, if Arteta had, I think he could do a job for the centre. I remember when he first come in, a couple of the Europa League games, he was playing down the middle, and he was brilliant under Emery. He was scoring goals for fun, and he looked amazing. And then all of a sudden, he got put out wide again. And I figured, Arteta, if he had that in mind, he'd be doing it now. He'd be moving him on. He would have been in the centre by now. But I do think we will sign strikers in the summer. I don't think it'll be a huge name. We can't attract those yet. But I do think it is going to be that style, like you said, who will come deep, create chances as well as put them away. Because now the majority of our goals are coming from wide or from midfield.
Yeah.
And that's because of the style of football we play. I mean, you look at the goals against Watford, all 3 of those goals come from those kind of positions. And that's the kind of football he wants to play. And if you're playing that kind of football, that's the kind of players you need. You need those players who can hold up that play, do the flicks, bring the midfielders and the wide players on. Do I agree with it completely? No. You need options. You need to have that kind of striker who can just get up there and put his foot in and put his head where it hurts. You need that, I think, because you need to be able to mix it up. But I don't think it's his way.
And I think
for example, Chris Wood at Newcastle. Many people maligned Chris Wood, but he ain't scored many goals when he's been at Newcastle. But I've been putting performances in.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I think it's just more about a different option, So if if the nice little football that he wants to play, and getting goals from Smith Rowe and Saka or Martinelli isn't working, then he can throw on a striker who can play as a striker. And even now, when he plays Nketiah last night, as an example, Nketiah was drifting out to the left-hand side. It's like, get a striker on, stick him in the box, get balls into the box.
Wrong. Nketiah should just be around the 18-yard box in the centre, and that's it.
Because he's a finisher, isn't he? He's a finisher in Nketiah. He's not a fantastic football player. He's a finisher, and that's when you're bringing on that as another option to the team. You've got to change the way you play, stick him through the middle, and throw balls into the box, or get balls into the box for him, or try to get him in behind. But we don't do that, and that worries me. That if we do buy a striker in the summer, and I agree with you, we're bound to. We've got to, because Lacazette.
You know what it is? Arteta's probably thinking, well, Man City ain't got a striker, so we don't need one. It's like,
Man City. If you look through Man City's squad, they've probably got 10 players who've got double figures in goals.
Yeah, they have. It's ridiculous.
Because they just get goals from everywhere. They get goals from everywhere. They don't need a striker because every single player's chipping in with goals. And we're not doing that. We've only got Saka, and Smith Rowe that have been even hit double figures. Do you know what I mean? They're the only two that's hit double figures this season in the whole squad. And,
they both play out wide. They both play out wide, and Smith Rowe's not even been in the starting lineup before tonight this year.
No, he hasn't. No, you're right. I mean, Neil says there, how are you boys feeling for fourth? I mean, for me personally, what I look at is I don't always look at the table at this point in the season necessarily in terms of the positions. What I look at is which teams have scored the most goals, which teams have let in the least goals, which teams have lost the least amount of games. And that's how you can kind of judge where you are, where you're going to likely to be. Now, I think we've scored the 7th most goals in the Premier League. I think 6 teams have scored more than us, right? That tends to suggest to me we're not scoring enough goals to finish in the top 4. Defensively, I think we've got the 4th best record. So we're in line defensively. I don't know if we still are after last night. This was before last night. We may not be anymore. We may have dropped down to 5th or 6th. So those two things are quite significant. We've lost 9 games. The same actually as Crystal Palace, who are 9th in the league. We've lost the same amount of games as them. That's a lot of defeats. So again, we're probably about 7th or 8th in number of defeats. So these things to me are suggesting that our season has not been good enough to finish in the top 4 from looking at those statistics. And I know football doesn't always work like that. It's about winning games. And if we win enough games 1-0, we'll end up still not scoring enough goals, but ultimately being in the position that we need to be in. But for me, looking at it now, looking at those kind of statistics, what other teams are doing around us as well, I don't think we're going to get top 4. I never thought we was going to get top 4 because I don't think we're good enough. And I don't think the squad depth is enough. We haven't got players to come off the bench who can come on and change games. He's having to bring on Nketiah every week, who's not good enough. Last night, Sambi Lokonga, he played okay, actually. He's not set foot on the pitch for months, has he? No. Sambi Lokonga. And he came on, did all right, actually. But he's not the sort of player that he's going to come on and change a game, is he? If you're losing 1-0, you need to bring someone on to change a game. We don't have that. So I don't think we'll finish top 4. I think we've got too many games that we're just not going to be able to get the results in. And I think we're going to come short. And I think actually, and I'm not just, people say it's an overreaction to last night. It is, and I've felt this for quite a long time. We're going to struggle to get top 6, I think, as well, with the games we've got left, with the squad that we've got, with the injuries now that we've got as well. 4th would be great, but I'm not sure we can do it. And I think we're just going to have to try and hang into the top 6, because if we don't come top 6, that would be an absolute disaster, wouldn't it? With no Europe this season at all, with nothing else to think about. I mean, what are you feeling for the top 4 now? We've got 9 games to go. We are still in a good position mathematically.
So, I mean, a month ago I was very confident, given the way we've been playing, but also more so the way other teams were playing. I was quite confident we had the games, and I'm never comfortable with the games in hand. I'd much rather have the points on the board than the games in hand. Always. Games in hand don't mean nothing unless you're winning them. The only kind of thing I've got is I still think the teams around us are going to drop points. I saw a stat the other day that since the turn of the year, Spurs have scored the most goals in the Premier League, which I didn't know. Obviously, 5 against Newcastle helped. So, like you just said about goals, Spurs are the ones who can score goals, but they also do concede. And I also think Spurs are going to lose games. They're not going to win every game or draws. They are going to lose games. So, and I also think Man United are not going to be consistent as well. So it's going to be as much about the teams around us as our own results. So all we can do is pick the results where we can. And I do think other teams will drop points. But like you just said, the games we've got left, they're not easy. We've got 9 games left now. And, probably maybe if I was hand on heart, I'd say 4 are definitely winnable. And then the others I'm not confident on. We could pick up a couple of wins and a couple of draws, but 4 I'd probably say I'm confident in, based on how we're playing now and how the other teams are playing. But you just never know. But at the same time, I've also looked at the other teams' fixtures. I don't think they're going to win every single game or draw every single game. So I think we still could get it, but I think it's going to be down as much to other teams as our own. Kind of like getting in the back door kind of thing, because other teams have been really bad, as opposed to us doing really, really good. But, again, beginning of the season, I thought top 6 would be our kind of area. And do I want us to get top 4? Obviously. Do I think we will? Not as confident, but I'm still going to try and stay positive and think yes. A lot is going to depend on the next 2 to 3 games. If we can get past the next 2 to 3 games without losing, that's going to be absolutely huge. It really is. But what worries me now is the squad. The squad depth worries me now.
Yeah.
When we did talk about this about 3 months ago, and we did say that, it is going to happen. We all said it. We all said there's going to be a period where things are not going to go our way. We're going to get suspensions. We're going to get injuries. Now Tierney's out. They think Partey could be worse because it was the place where he was injured before.
Yeah.
And obviously Tommy Asu's still not back properly, so he's obviously got something niggling. I know they've tried to get him back before. Pepe picks up an injury. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all now coming to the fore with the fact that now we've got a lack of squad depth is now really going to test us. And that could bite us on the backside now, especially the way he treated Tavares last night. If all of a sudden he's going to say Tavares, come back in at Brighton, Tavares is going to think, well, if I don't have a good first 20 minutes, I'm off. The kind of pressure that's going to put on him, poor lad. Do you know what I mean? You don't need that. And it is going to be interesting now, the way that he lines up. And I think Arteta has made a mistake in regards to substitutes recently, because there's been some games where we've been quite comfortable and there has been opportunities where he could bring players on for a bit of game time, but he's chosen to bring on the normal players like Nketiah or Pepe or Smith Rowe. He hasn't chosen to put on the youngsters or people who haven't had game time when we have been quite comfortable in games. Like the Leicester game, we were 2-0 up and it was a comfortable 2-0. And I'm looking to the bench and I'm thinking, now's the time to get some players on and blood them. Give them the debut. You're 2-0 up, you're at home. Leicester ain't got nothing. Give him 10 minutes. Give him a bit of experience. But no, he brings Nketiah on again for Lacazette. It's like, you don't need that. And that's one of the things that I find frustrating, the fact that he's had that opportunity, because now it comes to the situation where these players are going to be thrown in potentially and they might not perform and everyone's going to blame the players. It's like, no, they could have been bloody before now. So this is what worries me now. It's how we go. We'll see, because if Partey's injured, you can't afford to move Xhaka to left back. Do you know what I mean? If Partey's not injured, you could potentially put Xhaka left back and Lokonga in the middle, because Lokonga's done all right, I think, when he has played. There's potential there. You could drop over Odegaard back, put Smith Rowe in the middle. There's a lot of different options. I mean, a lot of people are saying Cedric as a left back. I think he can play there. Whether I'd want him there, I don't know. But, I think if you put in Cedric at left back over Tavares, again, Tavares might as well just pack his bags and be gone. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's it. He's had it. I don't want Saka there. I've seen a couple of things on Twitter playing Saka at left back. No. What? No. Yeah, he done that a couple of seasons ago when we needed him, but he's too important going forward now. So, and someone said, I don't know this for definite, but I read that evidently Tommy Asu can play at left back as well. He can play all along the back line. But if that's the case, you've still got to get him back first. So
exactly, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is an issue. I mean, I suppose, what we could look at a potential would be, even without Tommy Asu being fit, if Cedric was going to play left back, we could possibly play Ben White right back and Rob Holding in at centre back, possibly. But again, we're kind of scraping things around because we don't have the squad depth. That's the frustrating thing. And he's basically killed Nuno Tavares as a left back. Yeah. He's just killed him completely. The last two appearances he's made. And that's, I've said it before, to me, that's just poor management. It's poor player management by Arteta. You've got to do that better. Yes, he's had a poor game, but ultimately, you can't just throw him under the bus like that and expect him to come back in when you need him 2 months later and expect him to play well. It doesn't really work like that, does it? And Neil says, yeah, he seems to love our Eddie, doesn't he? Well, he does. But then we haven't got any other options, have we, really, up front? That's the problem as much as anything else, Neil says, good points from both of you, Reed Fourth. And Neil says, I heard Party might be okay for Saturday. Well, let's hope so. Fingers crossed he will be. But if it is his old injury comeback that he had last year, and that's a worry because he was out for ages, wasn't he? And he came back not when he was too early, and he had to come back off again, and he was out for ages after that, wasn't he? So we'll have to wait and see with the team kind of news later on in the week, I suppose, and find out. But yeah, it was always likely to become a problem because you can't go through 15, 20 games in the Premier League season and not get one or two injuries, can you? And it's kind of coming all at the same time now for us a little bit at a crucial time, which is, it's what it is. But we should have been preparing for this better in January. We had the opportunity to bring some people in, and we didn't for whatever reason. And if we do, if it is the thing that costs us the top four, if it is the thing that costs us European football, then it would have been a terrible mistake by the club not to have done that, not to have reinforced the squad in January when players went out. Clearly, we were short, and I don't know if they honestly expected us to be able to go through half a season with 11 players, basically, that to be fit all the way through. It was never going to happen. And anyway, we'll see how that works out, really. I mean, obviously, we've kind of touched on a little bit already. We do have a big game now. Well, even an even bigger game now on Saturday than perhaps it would have been otherwise. I mean, it's always going to be a big game, but now it's a huge game, isn't it, in terms of how we respond to last night. Obviously, Brighton, who, for a while had a decent record against us, actually. We kind of struggled to beat them, but last year we did get to do the double over them. Although the game at the Emirates was the last game of the season, there wasn't a lot to play for either team, and it wasn't much of a game. I know we did win. Obviously, it's a lot more important this time. There's a few statistics about Brighton, actually, which is probably in our favour, is quite good. They haven't actually scored in their last 3 games. They've only scored 1 goal in the last 7 matches.
Yeah.
6 of them they've lost and 1 draw, a 0-0 draw against Norwich. They did miss a penalty in that game, as you said. You're right. If we could pick a team to play right now to bounce back from that game, it would probably be Brighton at home, wouldn't it? Who can't score goals. And it gives us a great opportunity. But I look sometimes at runs like that, and my thoughts are always the same. Every bad run, like a good run, comes to an end at some point. Yeah. Brighton will start scoring goals again. They will, because they just will. You can't play 10 games of football and not score any goals in the Premier League. It doesn't happen. They will start scoring goals at some point. Our luck it will be they'll end that run against us. But it looks on paper, as we said, a decent time to be playing them. But I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because Brighton, I think, are a decent team. They've got some good players. They've got a good manager. For some reason, I think they're safe in the league now as their focus slightly switched off, and that's why they're struggling for goals. I still think they're actually playing quite well from what I've seen of them. They just can't score goals, can they? And as soon as you let in one, you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, like you just said there, like if you had to pick a team, it would be Brighton, but every run's got to end somewhere. And I'm always one of these people who thinks like someone's got to win sooner or later, someone's got to win them. But they don't look that good lately. I mean, I haven't seen, I don't think I've seen them live for a few months. But you watch Match of the Day and stuff. And a friend of mine's actually a Brighton fan. I've got a friend of mine who I know. I used to work with him, but I'm still in touch with him now, and he's a Brighton fan. He's a season ticket holder, so I talk to him fairly regular, and he actually says something similar to what we said about Arteta. He said Potter is good, but he doesn't have that plan B. He doesn't have that kind of, and it's not the fact that I don't think he doesn't have the personnel to change it. They're crying out for creativity and they're crying out for a striker, is what he kind of says. He said they're always okay at the back. He said, but the problem is when they concede, they're never really going to score. That's the problem. Like, they have to rely on getting that first goal. So he's not confident at all going into this week. I chatted to him at the weekend and he said he's not confident at all at the moment. And he's actually worried that they might get dragged down to the relegation fight because they've been playing so badly. So we'll probably help them out with that, knowing us. But I personally really want a reaction. I want us to go out and take it to them because they're going to defend. They're going to come out and they're going to defend because they know they've got trouble scoring. So they're going to try and set up shop to not concede. And if they can nab one on a set piece or on a break, that's what they're going to try and do. So I think we need to go at them from the word go because we know they're going to defend. Kind of like what Palace done to us last night. From that first go, get in their faces, put that pressure on. And I think if we can score, we'll get 2 or 3, because I think it'll be that kind of game. But the longer that game goes on, the more anxious it's going to get, the more we're going to panic, the more we're not going to see it change. You know what I mean? But we're going to probably load more strikers and more forwards on at the sake of getting someone at the back. So it is really key that first up in half an hour. We can kind of stamp our feet, get an early goal. That's going to be real key. But again, looking at the fixture list like I did before the game last night, this was one of the ones where I ticked for a 3-pointer. And especially now, it's become such an important game again now. Like everyone's saying, oh, all our games are important. Yeah, they are. But even more so when you lose. That it puts that extra kind of pressure on and that extra kind of, focus on. And I think sometimes maybe, like last night, for instance, maybe some of the players are not used to having that level of expectation. The fact that Spurs had gone ahead of us before the game last night, people expected us to have a performance. And some of the players we've got don't have that experience of having that level of expectation on them. And that's only going to be tenfold on Saturday, because of that loss. So it's going to be interesting to how those players deal with that expectation.
No, it is, and it's a different type of pressure, isn't it? We've been in 4th place for a while now, and teams were chasing us, and suddenly, maybe that was a factor last night. The fact we went into that game out of the top 4 for the first time in a while, and you're right, it is a different kind of pressure. It's a different situation to be in, and maybe that contributed to it. Obviously, we're still going to be in 5th place going into the game on Saturday, so we need to deal with that better. I mean, we've only actually scored 8 goals against Brighton in the last 8 meetings that we've had with them, so we don't exactly score a lot of goals against them, and they've scored 2, 3, 4, 5. They've scored 8 as well, actually, in the same amount of games. So it's kind of got draw written all over it. But
all the games all the recent games have been really tight with them. Always been. I mean, like this year's game was 0-0, wasn't it? I mean, at their place, and there was nothing in that. To be fair, there was absolutely nothing in that. We probably maybe shaded it a little bit, but draw was probably the fair result. But even with games when we've won, it's only been like 2-1, 2-0. It's been very, very tight. But then Brighton don't generally lose by loads, do they? I think they got stuffed by Man City once, but other than that, they don't really lose by a lot. They generally lose by the odd 1-0 or win by 1-0. They're that kind of side.
Yeah, they are, and I would anticipate much different from Saturday's game. Like you said, I think they'll set out to be solid at the back. They know that we don't score an awful lot of goals generally, especially at home. And I think they will set themselves up to try to contain us and try to nick a goal from a set piece, which they are dangerous at, aren't they? They've got a lot of height in their team, and if they get a decent delivery, they can be dangerous. So I know we haven't conceded from a set piece, have we, this season? I've read somewhere. So, maybe that won't be such a threat, but I think that's probably what they're going to look at.
It was until last night. No, we haven't conceded from a corner.
Corner. Oh, that's it. A corner.
Yeah, set piece, we conceded the goal last night, but haven't conceded from a corner.
No, so hopefully, that can continue. But, I'm anticipating a really, really tight game, a difficult game, and obviously one that the first goal is going to be so important, isn't it? Because if we do score first, I can see us, like you said, I can see us going, if it's early enough, I can see us going on getting 2 or 3 fairly comfortable victory. But if we don't score first, or if we don't score until deep into the second half, suddenly it's going to become much more difficult. The pressure's going to build. The confidence from Saturday is going to kick in. From last night, so is going to kick in as well. And I think it could end up being a frustrating game. But it's hard to know what to predict, because I think Brighton are a decent team. They've got some decent players, and it isn't going their way at the minute. But I still think it'll be a difficult game for us. But at home, surely we have got to win this game, haven't we?
We have to. We have to. We don't. If we don't, we can't kiss full goodbye, really.
I mean, what's worrying me, I've said it a few times this season, is that we had that good unbeaten run after losing to Man City. We lost to Liverpool. We then won our next game, but then we lost the next 2 after that. So we lost 3 out of 4. Then we lost to Man City, and then we didn't score in January. And recently we lost to Liverpool, and now we've lost
that little run, don't we, of not doing well 2 or 3 games.
We've now lost 2 out of 3. We bounced back by beating Villa, but now we've lost again. And if we don't beat Brighton, that's another little poor run that we've gone on. It'll be the 4th poor run because the start of the season with 3 defeats as well. So we need to win this game, and then we need to win the next one up, which is even more difficult because that's Southampton away, which obviously we'll talk about next week. But we've got some really difficult games coming up. And I'm not saying Brighton is a difficult game, but it's one of the easier games on paper, isn't it? Certainly that we've got. And it is one I agree with you. This is when you look at 3 points. You definitely target 3 points for Brighton at home every single season. We would. I know they did beat us a couple of years ago, but it is a good time to be playing them. But it's all about responding, isn't it, to last night? Not just in winning the game. Obviously, winning the game is important, but how we play as well. Yeah. Because I think we need to put in a good performance, especially at home, and to show that Monday night was I don't want to call it a one-off because it hasn't been this season. There's been too many of those performances, but let's put it as we need to start a run.
It's a little blip.
Yeah, let's hope it proves to be a little blip because we can't afford anything else. As I agree, if we don't beat Brighton at home on Saturday, the top 4 I think there's mathematically we still will win the chance, but you've got to look
not with the games we've got. Not with the games we've got.
The games we've got left and stuff like that. So it would concern me a lot if we don't win this game on Saturday. Nice to have a 3 o'clock kickoff, actually, isn't it, for a change at home? Nice. Not many of them these days. You going,
There's been quite a few this year, 3 o'clock Saturdays, but maybe that'll change again next year. But no, I'm not going this week, actually. It will only be the 3rd game I've missed this year at home. So I've got a long-standing family engagement, so... I've known for many a month that I couldn't go to this one. So I'll be listening in, though. I'll be keeping tabs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dorsey's going, isn't he? I think he's got a ticket off Melbourne, actually. So I think Dorsey's going on Saturday. So that is going to be hopefully good. Get a few goals for Dorsey, maybe, but we'll have to see. But
let's hope he's good luck. Let's hope he's good luck.
Yeah, let's hope he is, because we need a little bit of change of luck after last night, don't we? We won't quite do a score prediction yet. We'll do that at the end. What I do want to do is I look at a little bit of archive with Brighton. We haven't played them like a massive amount of times in history, but it's been a few kind of big games between us over the years. I mean, that little picture there on that clip was actually Brighton's very first ever match in the first top flight of English football in 1979 at the Goldstone Ground. Arsenal won 4-0. That was their first ever match in top flight football against us. So I'm sure they'll remember that, not fondly for the result because we did win 4-0, but for the experience. And a couple of little stats and history about Brighton, actually. They didn't score any goals against us in the first 9 meetings that we played them in all competitions. 9 games, their first 9 games, they didn't score against us. And in fact, it wasn't until April 1982 they scored their first goal against us, and they beat us 2-1 at the Goldstone Ground. And that was the first, they'd never scored against us before that. So that was a strange little statistic there. But they did go 5 games unbeaten against us between 2017 and, of course, last December when we won 1-0. At the Amex,
They've done a double over us a couple of years under Unai Emery, didn't they?
Yeah, although Unai Emery wasn't in charge of either of the games because Freddie Ljungberg was in charge of the home game. That's right.
He'd just been sacked, hadn't he, after the...
It was his first home game.
We were awful that game. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, and we lost 2-1. And then the return game that same season was when Arteta was there. The game when Bert Leno got snapped in half by Neil Maupay.
That's right.
We lost that game having led 1-0. So yeah, they did do the double overs that season as well. But we've had some okay results against them. I mean, is there any games in particular against Brighton that spring out for you? I know we've not had a massive amount because they've generally not been in the
ones that spring out for me. There's a couple. There's 3, I suppose, that spring out. One would be the one when we lost with Ljungberg's first game, because I remember going to the game and I took a mate of mine who doesn't go often, and I was thinking, and he's a Juventus fan actually, but he come along, he knows his football, and I said to him I was actually quite happy now because Unai had gone, Freddie's coming in. I said to him, I expect a performance tonight, pressure's off, and we were awful, absolutely awful. Like I couldn't believe how bad we were. So I remember that one. It was a horrible night as well, midweek, cold, horrible. I remember the Guendouzi moment, when that was during lockdown, weren't it? When he just lost it like flat, Turns out he was bragging about his wages when Mopé was getting paid more than him anyway, which I just find embarrassing. But the other one was we played him in the cup 2 years in a row, I think, away. I remember those, like early, maybe 2013, 14. I went to those games. I remember those, going down to the ground. I think it's quite a nice little setup they've got down there. And remembering it was 2 quite good games down there for the cup games. But like you said, not much of a history there between us. I think we've only played them 25, 24 times, something like that.
Yeah,
which is quite a minimal history in comparison. But those are the ones that stick. I remember the cup games, though. I remember them being both really, really good games. We went down to, and I think it was 3-2, both of those, or 2-1, 3-2.
3-2. Yeah, they were both 3-2.
Yeah, both 3-2. I remember those games. I remember them being quite exciting games, and one of them we were quite lucky to get away with a win. One of them,
we were.
should have a bit more.
One of them had that great goal from Thomas Rosicky, didn't it, as well?
That's right. Yeah,
that was a fantastic goal, wasn't it? I think that might have been the second of those games that we won 3-2. Yeah, that was a great moment. Mesut Ozil scored a goal in one of them cup games as well, didn't he?
Right. Yeah,
that was
goal. That was in the Wenger years, and we had that was when we used to take the cup seriously. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, no, we did, and I remember that the Mesut Ozil goal. As well, but that Thomas Rosicky goal really stands out still. That was a fantastic strike, that wasn't it? Because I think he did a no-look pass, didn't he, just before that, got it back and then scored from the edge of the box. That was a great goal. That was a great game. I only actually went to the Goldstone ground, which was Brighton's original ground, once. That was in the FA Cup in 1988, and we did win 2-1. Perry Grove scored and Kevin Richardson. That was the only time I actually went to the Goldstone ground, actually, because they spent a long time outside the top flight of English football. We did get them in a cup that year. I think it was in the 4th round. We won 2-1, and we got to the quarterfinals.
Never made it to Goldstone ground. So.
No, that was the only time I went. I mean, it was a funny old ground, actually. The away section was a little bit strange, and you sort of open air and stuff like that. But it was a bit of a dilapidated ground back then, and of course, they ended up losing that. But yeah, I've not been to the Annex, actually. And it does look a nice ground. It does look a nice ground, actually. It's one. I think it's the only ground in the Premier League I've not been to, actually.
The only thing I'd say about it is it's not very intimidating for an away fan.
No, I don't suppose it would be really, but yeah, I mean, it looks a nice stadium. I would like to go there one day. I'm sure I will at some stage. So it's the only one I need to tick off my list, actually. I haven't been to Brentford's new ground either, actually.
No, I'd like to go there. I didn't go to the old ground either. I would have loved to have gone to Brentford's old one.
Griffin Park, yeah. But no, so that's another one, actually. I forgot about them, obviously, back in the Premier League for the first time. So that's another one. But yeah, I've never been to the new ground. I mean, the first time I saw Brighton play was a 0-0 draw at Highbury in 1981. 1982, sorry. Not the greatest game of football ever. There was about 14,000, I think the crowd was, something like that. We weren't doing particularly well at the time. And it was a midweek game, and it was pretty dire. And in fact, most games, there has been a lot of really, really boring games against Brighton, actually, over the years, unfortunately, that we have played, especially at home. It never seems to be a great game, really, does it, unfortunately?
No.
The season that they got relegated in 1983, we did beat them 3-1 at Highbury. Raphael Mead scored a couple of goals, actually. Who I always liked Raphael Mead because he scored the first ever goal in the first ever game I went to. So that's probably why.
You mentioned him a few times. He's a bit before my time, just before, but
yeah. He wasn't a great player, but he did actually have a fairly decent goal scoring record in terms of like goals per minute he was on the pitch because he didn't play an awful lot. He come off the bench quite a few times. He'd always seem to pop up with a goal or two. And he ended up with a pretty decent goal scoring record, actually. And he seemed to get quite a lot of goals at Highbury, actually. And in my early first two or three seasons going to Highbury, he tended to pop up with goals. He did get 2 in that game against Brighton, which was good. In fact, Brighton's goal that day, I can't remember who scored it now. That was the year they reached the FA Cup final against Man United, actually, that season, when they lost in a replay, where they should have won the final, actually, 1983 FA Cup final. But they did score. That was the first time they'd ever scored away at Arsenal that game when we beat them 3-1. But I can't remember who scored now. I remembered it earlier. I should have wrote it down because I've forgotten now. But anyway, I can't remember who it was, but that was their first ever goal away at Arsenal. They've only actually scored 3 since then as well. In the whole history, they've only scored 4 times in games away at Arsenal. 2 of those came in that game that you mentioned, Freddie Ljungberg. They obviously won 2-1. They got 2 of them that night, and that's double. That's half of their total ever in history that they scored away at Arsenal. So, but yeah, it isn't a massive. It isn't a massive amount of history. But I say it was Brighton's first ever top flight game against us, so they'll probably remember it for that reason more than anything. And recent years haven't been great for us. I say we did do the double last year, but there were only 2 victories in 10 games against them, so not really a great record.
They're always a tough team to beat, always a tough team to play. They always set themselves out tough, no matter who they play against. So it's not going to be easy, but I think, we've got to go out strong. We really do. Yeah,
we do. And it's important that we win the game. That's it. And we've got to start well. What are you anticipating in terms of the lineup? Obviously, we'll have to assume Kieran Tierney's obviously out. I mean, Neil seems to think that maybe Thomas Partey may be fit. What changes do you expect to see? Do you think Nuno Tavares is going to start this game, or do you think his days are done now after last night?
I hope he does start him. I hope he does give him a chance, because otherwise it will completely wreck any confidence that the lad's got. So I hope, given the fact that it sounds awful that it is Brighton, they don't generally have too much attacking threat, then he gets a chance. You know what I mean? And I hope he does, because I think the obvious choice other than that is Xhaka again. But if Partey's not fully fit, you want Xhaka in that middle. Even if Partey does play, you want Xhaka with him. Because you can't have a half-fit Partey and a Lokonga in there. So I hope that Tavares does start, not because he has played well, but because I just think purely from a confidence perspective, he needs that. Otherwise, you might as well just sell him now and say, see you later, Nuno. Which you don't want. You never want to see a player foul, do you? You never want to see a player foul, especially a young lad. I'd expect to see Martinelli come back in the starting lineup, probably at the expense of Smith Rowe. I thought Smith Rowe didn't really get many opportunities last night, but when he didn't really impress too much. But again, no one did last night. It's not saying that he was awful. No one really did. But I did think Martinelli gave us a little bit more impetus last night when he come on. He did want to attack them. He did want to run at them. And I think especially against Brighton, where they are going to be more defensive, you want someone who's going to go at them more. The thing you could do potentially is that if Partey doesn't play, you could move Odegaard back, Smith Rowe then in the middle, central, and then Martinelli on the left. That's happened before, and that will give us more of an attacking lineup against Brighton. So that could potentially be something to look at. But other than that, how else are we going to change it? We ain't got the squad.
That's true. It's pretty much if you're fit, you're playing, and that's it, really.
Yeah,
it seems to be at the moment. I mean, you said obviously Brighton don't have a threat. Obviously, on Nuno Tavares' side of the pitch, they've got Tariq Lamptey, who plays as like a wing back, because they play 3 at the back.
He's good.
And he's a very good little player, and he's dangerous, isn't he? Gets to the line, gets crosses in. And I think he would maybe stretch Nuno defensively. And I've always felt, I quite like Nuno Tavares, actually. I think earlier in the season, he came in and he looked bright, didn't he? He was bombing forward. He was looking dangerous. He was getting shots in.
Get back in the team, first of all, couldn't he? When Tierney was fit, he couldn't get back in the team, first of all. So.
Yeah, because he was playing well. And he looked a great prospect. And for some reason, I always felt defensively he had a little bit of an issue. He needed to improve his defensive side of his game. He was decent going forward, but he wasn't so strong defensively. And funnily enough, we played Benfica, didn't we, in the Europa League last season?
Yeah.
And I actually had a Benfica fan on the channel ahead of those games, and he'd mentioned about Nuno Tavares being the weak link in their defence, actually, and he was good going forward. And obviously, we've bought him since, and I was like, okay, but I think he didn't notice his defensive deficiencies glaringly obvious at the beginning, because he kept bombing forward, and he didn't really notice it. But in recent games, he's been put under pressure defensively, and you've seen he's not quite at the level he needs to be yet. But he's never going to get to that level, is he? If he just keeps getting chucked out of the team and gets taken off. Neil in the chat there says, "I'm only concerned that they have watched Palace and may give them a lift as to how to approach the game. But despite our squad limitations, I think we'll get to the finish line. Let's hope so. And we've got Stephen in the chat as well. He says, "Hi guys, how are you? Hope all is well." Yeah, we're not too bad, mate. We're sort of, we're picking the pieces out of last night. We're feeling maybe slightly better about life now than we were an hour and a half or so ago when we hadn't had a chance to talk about it. But ultimately, it's like any defeat, isn't it? And I don't like to be sort of down in the dumps about it all, but every defeat feels bad because it means so much to us, don't it? So every time you lose, it does feel bad, and when it's a bad defeat as well, like last night, it's even worse, isn't it? And it's hard to then feel overly positive about the next game because you think, how are they going to respond to this? And it's hard, isn't it? And I don't like to feel like that, but ultimately that's what being a football fan's about, isn't it? The highs and the lows, and we go along with the ride a little bit, don't we? But let's hope that we can respond against Brighton. We have to, simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can't afford anymore. When you look at the fixtures that we've got in the next few weeks, it's like you look at them and you think, wow, it's harder to pick out the wins, isn't it? The game that you think we've got a great chance of winning that game. You look at them and you think, wow, Southampton away, that's going to be tough. We've got Chelsea, haven't we? Is that the midweek after that? And we've got Man United, haven't we, in the same week?
Yeah.
That's a tough run of games.
We've got Leeds early May. It's like, yeah, I mean, Leeds should be out of the fight by then, relegation, but you just never know.
They've improved actually under their new manager, haven't they?
They've done well. They've done well under their new manager. Seem to have had that new spark of confidence. They've had that. Hopefully, they've had that little bounce now, and then when we play them, they'll be all right.
Yeah, if they're safe by then, you often find that towards the end of the season, teams that have got a lot to play for, they're safe. They're not going to go down. They can't really get much higher up the league. Nothing to play for. They tend to go through the motions a little bit, and hopefully we can catch them on that sort of a day, and we can beat a few teams like that. Mark's in the chat, he says, Arteta owned up to it. He did, and he's done that before. When we've lost, he said it's his fault, and which is fair enough, and he's a manager and he needs to take responsibility. But it seems funny that Arteta can admit to it being his fault, but yet if us as fans say it's Arteta's fault, we get criticised for being negative. It's like, well, Arteta said it's his fault, so why can't we say it's his fault as well? You know what I mean? Because it is ultimately, it comes down to the manager, doesn't it? He picks the team, he prepares the team for the game, and if we don't play well, yes, the players need to take responsibility as well because they need to play better and need to do their jobs better. But ultimately, managers are the ones that's responsible. That's why they get sacked, and players don't, do they? It's managers that get sacked because they're the ones that's responsible. And Arteta should own up to it because he's in charge and he's got to. But it seems as though we can't criticise him because we're not allowed as fans. We've got to support him at all times, even when he gets things wrong. Neil says you were talking about the history between the two clubs, obviously Arsenal and Brighton, but this game could end up being pivotal for us with respect to the end of the season. Well, I think all these 9 games are potentially going to be pivotal on their own right, aren't they? Depending on how the results go. It'd be interesting to see exactly how these next few games go, really, because I say the Brighton game and then those 3 really, really difficult games. And if we don't beat Brighton, what are the chances of us picking up a couple of wins from those next 3? It's going to have an impact, isn't it, on what happens after? Do you feel?
It's true. I mean, I think that like you said, all the games are pivotal right now. All the games are pivotal. And depending on what happens in the next game will have an effect on the one after. So if we don't get a result against Brighton, it will just put more pressure on the one against Southampton, and it'll have a knock-on effect going onwards. But that's why I think the next 2 games, I say the next 3 games, really, if we can get through the next 3 games without a loss, I think we'll set ourselves in good standard. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, you say about Arteta owning up and stuff. You would expect him to. You know what I mean? Like you would expect him to. Obviously, like if he didn't, you'd be like, "What game were you watching?" And I think by the way, changing the subject, did you see Roy Hodgson's interview after the Liverpool game the other day about the VAR incident?
I did, yeah.
Talk about someone not owning up to it. That just made me laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my problems about VAR. I don't think Hodgson realises what VAR is there for.
Yeah.
He just made me laugh then, because I'm not. Why was VAR getting involved for? No players were arguing. It's like that's literally the point of VAR, right? Like you should have just retired and stayed retired. Just made me laugh.
No, it did, and it's funny because a lot of managers do in their interviews after a game sometimes do kind of look at excuses, don't they, for why they've lost.
That was it. So just clutching at straws. I was like, you lost the way at Liverpool, Roy. You don't need to make any excuses. It's fine. No. Just made me laugh at it.
No, it was a strange comment actually, and it was quite funny and amusing. But yeah, you do get some funny. I mean, some managers will look for excuses. At least Arteta's honest and said, "No, I'm taking responsibility for that."
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he said that a few times this season because there's been enough times he's had to say it because of the performances. And Mark says there, after a run of 8 wins in 10 games, we were going to mess up eventually, and last night was it. That's true, and we can't. I'm not going to disagree with that. My only concern, as we said before, it seems to start a run of games where we suddenly find wins a lot more harder to come by, and that'll go 3 or 4 games. And at this point in the season, we can't afford to do that because of the position that we're in. One defeat, okay, we can take that. It's going to happen. But if it becomes 3 or 4 games without a win following that, then we're in trouble, aren't we, in terms of where we're going to finish? And
that's the worrying thing.
That is the worrying thing. Yeah, that is the major concern at this point. You can maybe in January or February, you can think, okay, you have a couple of bad results, you've got time to make it up. If we have a couple of bad results now, there's not many games left afterwards to turn that around, is it? Neil says there's quite a good point actually, off topic, but what's happened to Patino? He was getting a few squad appearances in the first team, but not seen him of late.
Since that Forest game, hasn't he? He started against Forest, but since then we haven't really seen much of him. Yeah, it's weird.
No, and it's another one, isn't it, with Arteta? Obviously he did look a little bit out of his depth that day, Charlie Patino. But then, having said that, you look how Forest have been playing. They beat Leicester. They gave Liverpool a great game. They're a decent team away from home. Yeah, and he was thrown into that game, and he did look a bit out of his depth, but. What did we expect really in that sort of a game? And it seems harsh. If that's the reason, I don't know if he's got an injury. Has he been playing for the under-23s? Has he? Do you know?
I think so. I mean, I've not been following them religiously, but I seem to think whenever I do see the team sheet, he's always in the team. Yeah, it's a weird one. Well, it seems weird that we've got like these 3 players, the other day, Flores, Swanson, and then Patino's not there. Yeah, weird.
It is weird, and I say I was not sure if he was injured, but if he's not injured, maybe Arteta just feels he needs more time in the under-23s. Maybe, I don't know.
The only thing I can potentially think of is that we've already got a lot of players like Patino in that squad. It's probably who we don't need on the bench type of player. Do you know what I mean? So, Patino's kind of like central midfielder, can also play out wide, creative players. We've got creative players on the field. So maybe he feels that we don't need them on the bench, but not that he ever plays people off the bench anyway. But
I mean, do you know much about obviously those 3 guys last night? I mean, Zach Swanson's been on the bench quite a bit, hasn't come on yet.
Yeah, quite a lot lately.
Florin was on the bench. I mean, he's a midfield player, isn't he? Is he not a similar type player to Charlie Patino anyway?
True, very true. I don't know much about Flores, but I know he's a central midfielder.
Yeah.
So yeah, good point actually. We'll have to do a bit of investigating.
And obviously the other guy, Lars, was a defender, wasn't he? The other young lad. Who was on.
We'll have to reach out to Per Mertesacker and find out what's going on.
Yeah, we will. We need to find out what's going on because I don't really follow down the 23s as much as I should do, perhaps. And it'd be interesting to see what is happening with Charlie Patino actually, because it does seem strange that he was in the squad getting minutes. He came on. He obviously scored a goal, didn't he, against Sunderland in the cup? He played against Forest and suddenly
Murray Hutchinson. And Murray Hutchinson got on the bench a few times, and then lately he's just not even getting on the bench now. Whether it's just giving people experience of being around the team, I don't know.
And this, maybe he wants to spread that around, give other people the chance, but I don't know. It does seem a little bit strange. Mark says there, I'm a fair bit less concerned now than I was in September. Position then was a worry. I mean, it was. To be honest, I wasn't overly concerned then because I never seriously felt that we were going to be struggling against relegation. I always felt we were going to be fine. It was just obviously worrying as to following the last 2 seasons of finishing 8th, were we going to just be finishing mid-table again and doing nothing this season? That was my concern. I wasn't particularly worried about going down or anything like that. Obviously, now we're in a much better position than we could have hoped for, certainly back then. But ultimately, if we don't make top 4 now, it would still feel disappointing, wouldn't it? Even though it's more than we would have want or expected at the start of the season. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because of where we've been in the last few weeks and the games in hand that we had, the position that we were in. Would you still be disappointed if we don't come top 4?
Yeah, I think so. I think that even though I didn't expect it, I think I would be disappointed given the position that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
And given the teams around us are quite mediocre this season. I mean, in the league, you've got Liverpool and Man City who are a cut above everyone else. I think Chelsea started off the season very, very strong, but, you know, they're inconsistent. If they wouldn't have had such a strong start, they could quite easily be where us and Man United are now. And I do kind of class them in the same position as us, like us, Man United, Spurs, potentially Wolves, West Ham. You know, we're all in that kind of bunch where we're inconsistent. You know, put a little run together, lose a couple. So I think, based on the way other teams performed and the inconsistencies, I would be disappointed. But then again, we've lost 9 games. Like, if we've lost 9 games, do we deserve to be in top 4, like you just mentioned earlier? And if you just say to me about watching the season, if we lose 9 games, will we get top 4? I'd say no way we're going to get in top 4 if we lost 9 games in the season. And we're saying that with 9 games left to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the crazy thing.
We could lose a few more by the end.
You can't, and that says it already. You can't. We haven't drew that. Where we've been lucky is kind of lucky. We haven't drew that many this season. We drew 3 or 4, which is quite low for a team to draw. But we lost 9 games. I mean, that's a lot of games to lose in a season.
It is. It is. I mean, it's a lot of games to lose if you want to be challenging for the top 4. It is. Yeah, it's more games than you would normally expect to lose.
That screams to me like mid-table team losing 9 games, because without looking at the wins or the draws, you think, well, you're going to probably draw about 8, win about another 9. But yeah, it's crazy. But it's been a weird season, isn't it? It's been a real weird season. Apart from those top 2, the inconsistencies have just been crazy.
Yeah, no, that's true. It is. Neil says there, for me, we had it and still, to a degree, have it in our hands. Well, it is sort of in our hands in terms of if we win our games, we'll finish top 4 on points. But Neil says it will hurt if we don't make 4th. Yeah, it will hurt because it's a massive opportunity opened up for us or for somebody to get that 4th place because of the way the season's gone. You know,
the team who's going to get 4th now is kind of getting in the back door. They've not really performed consistently, but they're going to get in there by, the back door kind of thing, which would be nice to do.
Well, it would. It's an opportunity to get it. We might not get too many better opportunities than this to get the top 4. That's what worries me, because other teams are likely to improve over the next year or 2 anyway. Mark says, I said before this season started, we finished 8th. So for me, we're punching above our weight. Where did you guys think we'd finish as the season began? For me, I was expecting us to be back in Europe, so maybe 6th place. With the money that we spent in the summer as well, we finished 8th last season. We spent quite a lot of money, bought in a lot of new players. I expected sort of 6th, really, if I'm honest. Yeah. Finishing 6th would have been what I kind of anticipated we would be. What about you, Adam? At the start of the season, what was your
top 6 was what I suggested. Like 5th or 6th, I was expecting, based on how we performed last year. I thought I wanted improvement from last year. I wanted to get better than 8th, and obviously 7th's really nothing. So yeah, 5th and 6th was where I wanted. So where I thought. So,
and I think that was a reasonable expectation at the start of the season with the players that we brought in, with how we finished last season and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, a part of me was thinking that we may finish 8th again because of the lack of kind of faith I've had in Arteta. But realistically, looking at it with what we'd spent and stuff like that, I kind of thought 6th was probably about where we would finish. So I guess if we finish a 6th or higher, then we've done well. We've done better than expected. Neil says, I think it's because we had no distractions with respect to Europe and an early exit from the FA Cup, so that's why it would leave a bit of taste. No, you're right. I mean, I do feel that's a good point. I mean, we're going to end the season with what? We'll only play 45 games or something across all competitions, which is, when was the last time we only played that many games in a season? It'll be like 25 odd years ago, won't it? With no Europe. So there hasn't been distractions. There hasn't been excuses, really. We should be doing even better maybe than we have been in the Premier League. When you look at the lack of other competitions, I feel that we've maybe, in a way you could say we've overperformed if we're currently 5th. We didn't expect us to be there, but the way the season's gone and being out of all the cups early-ish and no Europe, other teams.
I was like Neil said, I was really disappointed with the cups. Like I felt we could have. Obviously we got to the semi-finals of the League Cup, But with the FA Cup, I felt we could have had a real run at that. So the Forest game was so disappointing for me, just because of that reason. We had no reason not to go out for that one at all. So yeah, I expected us to do much better in the cups.
Yeah, I did, and I mean semi-final of the League Cup, I guess. I mean, I know I've been off work today, so I've been time to think about things. But I had my little thing about Arteta before he's being a coach, and I kind of see in a way. I mean, I don't know whether you remember too much about the Bruce Rioch kind of season.
Oh, I do remember that.
The Bruce Rioch was brought in as a stopgap, really, wasn't he?
Yeah,
because we couldn't get Wenger at the time. We
at the time we didn't know that, but looking back on it, it was obvious.
No, I mean, yeah, we didn't know, but the club did, because David Dean wanted Wenger when George Graham went, didn't he? But he couldn't get him out of his contract in Japan and stuff like that. And they got Bruce Rioch in, and Bruce Rioch did all right. He stabilised the club. We'd had a very, very chaotic season, didn't we, the year before? And he kind of stabilised the club. He got us to 5th place, got us back into Europe, reached the semi-final League Cup, changed the style of play from how we'd been playing before, a different system. And that kind of almost ushered in the Wenger era in a way, made that transition from George Graham to Arsene Wenger. And I kind of look at it. I kind of look at Arteta as a Bruce Rioch kind of manager. I always have done, really, because he hasn't got the top level experience of being a manager like Bruce Rioch did. Bruce Rioch was a manager. He'd been a manager before, but not at a big club. And he did okay. But would we have ever progressed with Bruce Rioch? The club knew we couldn't. As soon as they could get Wenger that they wanted, they made that change straight away. I'm kind of thinking now with what Vieira's doing, is this the time to think Arteta's never going to take us there? Let's get Vieira in when we can and make that change. That's how I kind of looking at it. I kind of look on Arteta as the modern day Bruce Rioch, which maybe is unfair because he's probably a much better coach than Bruce Rioch, and he's probably going to become a much better manager than Bruce Rioch. But in Arsenal sense, that's how I kind of see him, as a stopgap between maybe. I know Emery was kind of a stopgap in a way. I don't think Emery was intending to be a stopgap. I
saw Emery as a Bruce Rioch. When Emery come, I never expected him to stay longer than a couple of years, even from the start. He just didn't seem to have the right fit. Like Bruce Rioch, when he come, he didn't seem to have the right fit. He wasn't the right fit. No. Emery didn't have the right fit. So I kind of see Emery more as that Bruce Rioch, and Arteta more as the Wenger, i.e. Wenger come from relatively nowhere. Arteta come from no management experience as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, Wenger had management experience, but no one had really heard of him in the UK. Obviously, managed Japan, managed Monaco, etc. So that's the way I kind of see it. But obviously, Arteta's not on the same level as Wenger. Not on the same level, nowhere near it, which is a shame.
By now, of course, in Wenger's reign, he'd already won the double and stuff like that, hadn't he?
Well, so, yeah, when you put it like that, yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of. I saw the appointment of Arteta as being a stopgap. Yes, Emery probably was a stopgap. Although at the time I thought he had experience, and I thought he was looked upon as being a fairly long-term solution for the club at the time. It didn't work like that, and I think we all realised that quite quickly. But I don't know. I've always kind of looked on Arteta as a bit of a stopgap manager, really. But looks like we're stuck with him, or he's going to stay where he is. And if we do get top 4, then fair enough. Do you know what I mean? He's done more than we would have expected from him. I mean, we've got to be, we'd have to be happy with that. Neil says he was expecting 6 and a cup. Yeah, a cup run. I was certainly expecting a decent go at both of the cup. I mean, semi-final one's not bad, I guess. And Liverpool, a lot of teams lose to Liverpool, don't they? And Neil says, Bergkamp and Platt. Yeah, that was, of course, the Bruce Rioch season. Robert says if we can't beat the teams left, we'll not win a European Cup. We have to address this, not the manager, Arteta. We need Kroenke to splash the cash now like he did with his American team. We won. Yeah, it's a little bit of that. I think we did splash the cash last summer, didn't we? We spent a lot of money.
I don't think the spending's been an issue. Like, over the past few, obviously not January gone, but the past few windows before that, we can't blame that on Kroenke's. Kroenke's have given Arteta what he wanted.
Yeah,
I don't really blame that for that. Like, people have got a lot of issues about KSE, but they can't say that they haven't given him cash.
And I actually think they would have given him cash in January if he actually wanted to buy somebody.
I think if the right player was there, they would have, yeah. So, say what you like about the Kroenkes and KSE. I don't particularly want them as owners, but they have backed him. And you can't argue with that.
No,
so,
I 100% agree. And ultimately, if Arteta does fail, it isn't because he didn't get backed. And I actually had a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago about Emery, saying that if Emery had been given the backing that Arteta's been given, I think Emery could have been a success because he's shown at other clubs what he can achieve, and he just wasn't given the time on the backing at Arsenal for whatever reason. And had he been given what Arteta's been given, I think Emery would have been. I think we'd already been in the Champions League now. I think we'd have qualified last season if Emery had been given the backing.
The most disappointing for me with Emery was how we ended that first season with him. We were in the top 4, and then that last 6 games was just atrocious. Do you know what I mean? Like that.
Why? He threw everything into the winning the Europa League, didn't he? That was his way into the Champions League. In the end, though, even though we had that terrible run, we was only 2 points off finishing 3rd.
And that's why it annoys me so much.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. Why it annoys me so much. It's like, and that we could have had a completely different Arsenal now.
Yeah. It would have been.
Yeah, we would have. Like equally, that's what really we'll always remember about the Emery era. Like he got us in such a strong position, and then 6 games to the go, just like the horses just stopped jumping. It's just like that's it now.
He did, yeah. It was that was frustrating, and I think because he'd won the Europa League so many times, he probably felt he'd win it again. And
I always remember that seasons like thinking those last seasons, we're gonna need one more win. We'll get that. Oh, we lost
3 in a row.
We got 5 more games. We're going to need one more. Oh, right, we lost that one again. Oh, it's all right. We'll get 1 win, and then the win never come.
Yeah, I know. That was that Brighton game at home, funny enough, wasn't it? When we drew 1-1 in between the 2 Europa League semi-finals, and that was a killer in the end, wasn't it? Because if we'd won that game, we would have come 3rd. That one game against Brighton, we took an early lead as well. But anyway,
just 2 points off. Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Stephen says, I think Arteta is the right guy for the rebuild, but then to take us to the next stage, I think we need someone else. I mean, I think that's 100% right. But is he even the right man for the rebuild? So it's taken him 2.5 years, and we haven't even really got the rebuild anywhere near where it needs to be. Vieira's had a job 8 months, and he's already rebuilt them quicker than Arteta rebuilding Arsenal. So I don't know if he's the right man for the rebuild, actually. But anyway, Robert says there, June 2020, Man City 3-0. In July that same year, 2020, we beat City 2-0. This is what we should be looking into. Liverpool beat us 3-1 September 2020. Beat Liverpool twice that year, 5-4 in the cup on penalties, 2-1 in July. Yeah, but what have we done against them teams since? Do you know what I mean? We haven't beaten them, have we, since? We've lost every time we've played them since then. And, Man City, we lost twice to this season. Liverpool, we lost 3 times, 2 out of 4. We didn't even score against Liverpool this season. So, we haven't built on that, have we? Robert says we need the confidence to put it right. Well, it's not just confidence we need. I think we need a different approach to those games, quite honestly, because why is our record so poor against these teams year after year after year? And it continues to be under different managers. Emery couldn't get good results against them teams. Wenger in the end couldn't. Arteta hasn't consistently. Yes, 1 or 2 results here and there he has, but not consistently enough. It's not just confidence, is it? I think there's a lot more. It's not just about spending money necessarily. That's going to help, obviously. There's a lot of things, isn't there, that need to happen for us to go from trying to challenge to get back into Europe and get in the top 4 to then take that next step to start actually being serious about challenging for the big trophies. The Premier League title, the Champions League, and really back at that top level again. We're miles off that still, aren't we?
Yeah, I think also, like, Robert mentioned we beat Liverpool. Liverpool had already won the league then. It was like they didn't have a full strength team out as well, and it was lockdown. There was a lot of weird stuff happening around then. Yeah, it was nice to beat them, but I don't really class that as a pivotal win. You know what I mean? There was a lot of things going in our way at that kind of time, but yeah, I mean, we all know what needs to be done. It's just how we can do it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a difficult job. Tom says there, I'm Arteta in 100%, always will be. I back the players and the manager. Unai brought horrendous football to the Emirates, piss poor passing week in, week out, around the back. How many goals? No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just don't feel that Emery was given the backing and the support of the club to the same extent that Arteta has been given. And had he been, he may well have got better results, better players. He would have got the players he really wanted, and maybe he could have made a better go of it. We don't know. We'll never know that. It's just speculation. It's just I believe that had he been given the same backing, we may well already be in the Champions League now, rather than trying to scramble to get into it this season, personally. And I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't like all this Arteta in, Arteta out, and all this kind of stuff. I think all of us are Arsenal in. And all we want is Arsenal to do well. I don't care who the manager is. If we're winning games of football, then I don't care if it's Arteta, if it's Patrick Vieira, if it's Adam. I don't care who the manager is, as long as we're winning games of football and we're playing well and we're enjoying it. If that's not the case, and then the manager, unfortunately, is the first person to be changed, isn't it? If you're not winning games, you're not doing what you expected to do, the manager goes. And I'm happy with that. And I've always been happy with that, because that's what happens. And Arsenal's more important than any one man, any manager, any player. The club's more important. And if the club are doing well, we're all happy. And so I wouldn't say I'm Arteta in or Arteta out. I just want Arsenal to do well. Arteta's manager at the moment. So, yes, let's support him. Let's hope we can turn it around. But I'm not convinced he's the right man to take us forward. He's not convinced me of that as yet. But if we get top 4 and next season we push on, I'll hold my hands up. Brilliant. I'll be happy because we're doing what I want us to do as a club. And I say, whether it's Arteta or whether it isn't, makes not a lot of difference to me, as long as the club ends up getting back to where we want us to be. And Tom says he was an awful manager. He wasn't great for us, agreed, but he wasn't given the players he wanted. And that would have had an impact. I'm not saying how it would have gone or not. I just would like to have seen him given the backing Arteta has been given, just to see how that could have gone. It may well have gone a lot different, because as Adam said, we wasn't far off getting in the top 4 that season. His only full season. He wasn't far off. We got to the European final. That's not a bad season, is it, overall? Could have been a little bit better, but it wasn't a bad season. It was something to build on for the season after. But again, he wasn't really backed, and it went horribly wrong, didn't it? It went horribly wrong after that. And Tom says his style of play was horrendous. Leno couldn't catch a ball for love nor money, and we're always playing it out from the back. No, we were, but is that not what Arteta's wanted to do? But Arteta's been given the players he wanted to be able to play that system. Emery wasn't. Emery had to play Leno because that was a goalkeeper he had. He had to play Socrates and he had to play Mustafi playing it out from the back because that's what he had. He wasn't given the players he wanted to play the style he was good at playing. And that's why it didn't work. If Arteta had that same team, when in fact he did, when Arteta first started playing it out from the back, how many stupid mistakes did we make? How many goals were we conceding under Arteta doing exactly the same thing? Because that's the style of play. And then eventually they backed Arteta, giving the players he wanted. And that system now is better. We're not making the same mistakes doing that. Our problems are further up the pitch. We were scoring loads of goals under Emery, not a problem at all. We're not now. So that's an area that needs to improve next. But I'm not sure. We'll have to see what happens. Mark C says there, we're not far short of a top 3 spot. The summer spending needs to be big. 4 or 5 players. No, exactly. We do need at least 4 or 5 players. Stephen says there, that's what I think. I'm the same as you. I don't give a flying monkeys who's in charge. I just want the club to win. I support Arsenal. Exactly. I mean, I've supported Arsenal. We've had 5 or 6 managers in the time I've supported Arsenal, maybe more. Terry, Neil, Don Howe, George Graham, Bruce Rioch, Wenger, Emery, Arteta. Doesn't matter. The club is the most important thing. So I'm not Arteta in or Arteta out. I'm just Arsenal. That's it. Russ says, hi, chaps. Hope you both well. Yeah, we're good, mate. Hope you're doing well as well. And Tom says he got rid of the lead weights. Yeah, well, that's true. Stephen says the players didn't want to play for Emery. Those players should be ashamed of themselves, behaving like spoiled brats. Some of them didn't want to play for him. Some didn't want to play for Arteta, did they? Arteta got rid of them. So, that's the way it goes. Robert says the reason managers refuse to manage Arsenal is due to the Kroenke family. Well, do managers refuse to manage Arsenal? We asked. Let's turn this down. We're not going to ask anyone.
Which manager has turned us down in the since Wenger? I think that when Wenger left, we didn't have a shortage of people winning the job.
No. Wasn't there a short list of people they interviewed? And Emery got the job, didn't he, on the back of something I can't remember how he got it now, but we interviewed quite a few people, didn't we?
Yeah, Arteta was one of the ones at the time, but I think we interviewed quite a lot as well. I think quite a lot of experienced ones as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. Tom says, I think you're an Arteta out. No, I'm not. I'm not Arteta in or out. I'm Arsenal in, and that's it. But if Arteta does well, I'll be happy. If we achieve what we need to achieve, which is getting back into Europe, if next season we then build on that, happy days. We'll all be happy, and I'll be happy that Arteta's there. But if we don't do that, and we don't push on, and we don't progress, then obviously I'll be looking for someone else to come in. And I've got my eye on a certain manager who we might have come quite close to last night, actually. As to I've got my eye on, but that's just me. That might just be a romantic thing because it's Patrick Vieira and he's one of the greatest players ever to play football. in English football. He's one of Arsenal's greatest ever players, and now he's doing a decent job as a manager. And it's just a dream to have somebody like that, isn't it? You know, it's like if Thierry Henry was in the Premier League now, managing somebody like Brighton, and Brighton were doing really well, playing good football, reaching FA Cup semi-finals. We would look at that and think, wouldn't we love him to be at Arsenal right now? And it's the same with Patrick Vieira, because I love the guy, and he was such a fantastic player for us, and I'd love him to be manager of Arsenal. And the fact that we are not consistent enough, we're not playing always great football, and we're struggling a little bit at times, and Vieira seems to have turned things around at Palace really quickly, makes me think even more how much I would love him to be manager of the club. But I know it's not going to happen, because I agree with Adam. Arteta's not going anywhere at this moment in time, and if we do finish top 4, he shouldn't go anywhere. If we finish top 6, he shouldn't go anywhere, because he's achieved what we had to achieve, which was getting into Europe. So I'll be happy with that. But can he take us any further on? We'll have to wait and see. Robert says there, Wenger ran the club out from the best academy, the best reserves, the best first team, orders by Kroenke. We have an empty shell since then. Yes, the ground is possibly the reason I want Kroenke out. No, I mean, I understand you wanted Kroenke out. The ground was the thing. We had to get rid of players. We couldn't invest as we did before because we had to pay for the stadium. And Wenger did the best he could in those circumstances. And, you know, he probably did really well when you look back on it in what he had at his disposal. But ultimately, we've suffered as a club, haven't we, on the back of that? Neil says, let's look forward and hope we can get back strong performances and wins.
Yes, Neil. Yes.
Life is shit when Arsenal are. So no, you're exactly right. It is. I hope that's exactly what we need to do. Yeah, it is. You know, I know we've gone on about Emery a bit, but you're right. It's pointless looking back. We need to look forward now. We've got 9 big games to play, and we need to try to win as many of them as we can, and hopefully we'll end the season where we want to be, which is back in Europe, hopefully top 4. Who knows? It's still possible. Tom says, to be fair, you did say last night, if we get top 6, you're happy this season. Yeah, that's right. Which I think after the first 3 games this season, we'll be so grateful right now to where we are if we look back to that. No, you're right. I mean, no one would have expected us to be top 6. Why? I will stand by that. I'll stand by that all season. Top 6 for me is fine this season. I'll take top 6 back in Europe. If we make top 4, even better. You know, we'll all be over the moon. But yeah, top 6, I'll be happy with that. Arteta's done his job, and that's all we can hope for. And then let's see how we push on from that position next season. Back in Europe, we'd need a bigger squad. We need to invest a lot in the summer if we are in Europe again, and let's see where we are. But yeah, top 6 is definitely where we need to finish. And if we do, I'll be happy with that, and give us the opportunity to enjoy European football again, which we've missed this season. I've certainly missed it, actually. I know I don't like the Champions League much, but ultimately, when you're not in it, you do kind of look at it and think, I wish we were playing tonight. I wish we were playing in the Champions League or in Europe. So, yeah, it's a shame, but let's see what happens. It's still, you know, we still may get there yet. So I'm not giving up all hope. So we've got all that out of our system. Do you feel a bit better now, Adam?
I do. I feel like I've cleansed.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah.
Cleansed our soul.
I feel better than I did this morning, put it that way.
Yeah, no, I do as well. And last night was horrible. Obviously, we missed Melvin tonight. He's actually got his play this week, so he's busy doing that. So good luck with that. I'm sure that's going to be good. If you get a chance to see that, please do, because it's going to be definitely worth watching. Dorsey, unfortunately, had to pull out last minute. He's not feeling well tonight, so we missed him as well. Liam was going to be coming on as well. He couldn't make it either. He's going on holiday. Lots of stuff going on tonight. But we did, of course, get Rich on the Crystal Palace fan. That was nice to speak to him earlier as well. Robert says there, half of this team would not match the ability as the subs on the bench of the invincible team. Well, of course not. Wenger back, please. He also got rid of our players, but they were the best. I think Wenger's ship has sailed, unfortunately. But anyway, we need to look forward, as Neil said now. And Neil says they're a great show, chaps. Hope Melvin did well. Yeah, I think he's on a few nights, so, you know, I'm sure it'll be great. And Tom says, not having a dig, mate, we just have to be realists. I've still got fingers crossed for the top 4. Let's smash Brighton. So, no, exactly. We've all got our fingers crossed for the top 4, and we've still got a chance. Let's be honest. We just need to bounce back Saturday, as you said. And if we win that game, then we will have a great chance of getting there, hopefully, for the last few games of the season. Let's push on and really do it. But the squad depth is my concern. The injuries now and stuff like that. So, but while it's mathematically possible, I'm going to believe that we can do it, and I'm going to, you know, hope that we can. But as the games tick by, we don't start winning a few more, then that might change. There's another comment coming there, and Robert says George Graham done in his time for crime. He was a great man. Yeah, George Graham as well. I love George Graham. We love Arsene Wenger as well. But unfortunately, I miss those days actually of when you felt we had a chance of winning the league. They were nice days, weren't they? Seems like a long time ago since I felt like
that.
that.
Season full of hope.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I went into a season believing that we had a chance of winning the league. Actually, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
No, it has been a long while, actually.
I know in 2016 we didn't really come that close in the end, but I never felt before that season started we were realistically going to win the league. It's just the way the season panned out. It was like, actually, we've got a chance now. But I can't remember the last time in the summer I thought, you know what, we're ready to go here to win the league.
I'm the same. I can't think of it.
It's been a long time. I can't remember last time, actually. Neil says there, let's be positive, keep the faith. Indeed. Mark says, roll on Saturday. Yeah, roll on Saturday, indeed. And Robert says, what a player he was as well. Obviously, George Graham, he was a great player actually as well for Arsenal and a great manager. We've had a few great players and great managers, haven't we, as well at Arsenal. Neil says there, take care all, really try and come on soon. Much love and all the best. And yourself, mate. Yeah, hope you're well. Yeah, we definitely need to get you on. I know every week we keep saying it, and every week it can't quite happen for one reason or another, but I'm sure it will at some point very soon. So thanks obviously to Adam, as always. I know we've missed in half of our team tonight, but I'm sure they'll all be back next week, ready for the session. But you enjoyed the show, yeah?
I did. I needed to get it off my chest. I feel good. I'm feeling positive again. So yeah, roll on Saturday.
Exactly, roll on Saturday. That's what we want. A big performance from Arsenal. Robert says, is there any news on Miedemar's contract? Not yet. We're still waiting. I don't think it's going to be decided till the end of the season, if I'm totally honest. But we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Coming up on the channel, there's no midweek games this week. There's not much going on actually. So the next show is going to be Friday, the Arsenal women's show with the gang. We're going to be looking back on the victory against Leicester, his international break. We're going to be looking at that as well. Plus one or two other stories from the Arsenal women on Friday at 7:30. And of course Saturday, the Brighton game. We'll be covering that on the channel. 3 o'clock kickoff unusually. So I'll probably go live about 2:45 for that bit of build up, the team news, commentary, all that stuff, the usual stuff on Saturday for that game. And then, of course, next week, next Tuesday, the Tuesday clinic, hopefully Melvin and Dorsey will be back as well, along with Adam, and we can look back on the Brighton game, look ahead to Southampton and any other kind of interesting news stuff that comes up in the meantime, of which there will probably be some. Stephen says, a great show, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Hit likes, guys. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, see you next time. Tom says, see you Saturday. If any of you are on here, probably in the Tolly before kickoff. That'd be good. Yeah, we was at the Tolly actually before the Arsenal women's game against Wolfsburg the other week, which was good. So yeah, thanks for everyone for watching. So I'll be back on Friday for the women's show, which is going to be good, and then of course Saturday for the Brighton game. Let's hope it's a good one. Let's hope we can bounce back and put last night very, very much behind us. Neil says, yeah, I'm there. That'd be good. Everyone's going to the game on Saturdays. And Dorsey's going as well. So if anyone bumps into Dorsey, who's at the game, please say hello as well to Dorsey on Saturday if you do see him. And Robert says, Jesus to be the manager for wins on a prayer. Exactly. And Neil says, up the Gunners, lads. Indeed, it is. So that's it for tonight. I say thanks for Adam, as always. And I say thanks to Rich earlier on. Eagle-Eyed Football, please check them out. It was a good show on Saturday with him, a preview of the game. Good for him to come on tonight as well and talk about. He didn't gloat too much, did he? Which was nice.
No, he was good.
And, they did deserve to win at the end of the day. And fair enough, but he could have gloated a bit more than he did, so that was nice. So thanks to Adam, thanks to all you guys for watching. Please give it a like before you go. I will see you Friday for the women's show, Saturday for the watch along, and in the meantime, of course, as always, come on you Gunners, let's bounce back Saturday, let's do it, come on. See you later guys, take it easy, speak to you soon.